Hey everyone, welcome to 2020 in the year of our Lord. It is GameFace episode 195 on SIFTD Games at SIFTD.net. We are here, people, to finally kick off 2020 with you all. This is our big 2020 preview show. I think we literally have 70 games we're going to talk about today on GameFace. There are a lot.
It'll be a long year.
Yeah, after this show is over, you will have no doubt what the big games and products are that are coming out this year. I hope you guys had a great holiday season. Hope you had a happy and safe new year. If you're watching this, I'm guessing you did. How was your break, Matt?
It was good. Although, as you may be able to hear, I do not sound normal. While I was up north, I hugged a sad dog. And it turned out I was very allergic to that particular dog. And,
I mean, it's been a week, right?
It was a week ago, yeah. So, but this is, if I get a bad allergy attack, this is just what happens. So I feel fine. I just don't sound like it.
That's the thing about allergies in general is like once you get over the attack, you feel fine and you sound like crap. People actually think you're worse after you're getting over it. But man, you had a bad attack.
Yeah, it was.
To be feeling it a week later, that's bad.
Yeah, I haven't had anything like this lasting in probably 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. But glad you're here. He definitely, you bucked up and made it for the show, so thank you.
Nah, it's fine for me. It doesn't bother me. It's just going to bother anyone who has to listen to me.
Did you get anything fun for Christmas, Matt? Anything gaming related for Christmas?
Gaming related? Not really. People don't buy me game stuff.
Yeah. They assume I'm going to get it myself, yeah.
I did get, from my mom, I got the new giant Lego Star Destroyer.
That's like a G.
Yeah, it's a little less.
Almost $1,000 though, right? Yeah.
So,
did you put it together yet?
No, it's sitting on my dining room table because it's the only table strong enough to hold it.
How long is it going to take to put it together?
I don't know. I mean, I have a couple of the other ones, and those are 8 to 12 hour builds. So
really, you can get that whole thing done in 8 to 12 hours if you grind at it.
If you focus, yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
I might bring in like an assembly line or something. We could do it multiple people at once.
Yeah. Have each person assemble like a part of the Star Destroyer. That would be fun. I didn't get anything gaming related for Christmas other than what you guys got me. And I'll be honest, I think what you guys got me for Christmas is the best thing I got for Christmas. You guys got me an Xbox Elite Series 2 controller, and in hindsight, it was the best Christmas gift I got. So thank you very much. You guys are awesome. I did get some cool stuff, though, that I want to show you guys. So my wife obviously knows I'm a huge gamer, and she is a big fan of this candy company called Sugar Fina. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
They're kind of like a boutique, candy store or whatever. And she was shopping for Christmas, and she came across some really cool stuff. So she got me this, which is like an NES-shaped candy box. And then it's a controller, obviously. You pull it out, and it has these two separate things inside. You can see it there. And they're like different kinds of Nintendo candy. They're mostly like gummy bears, but they're really good. They're like high post gummy bears. This stuff was really expensive too. When I found out how much you spent for it, I was like, that was a mistake. But anyway, and then the coolest thing I think she got me of all of it is this Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It looks like an NES. And then you pull this sleeve off of it. I guess I should actually have it turned this way for you guys. You pull this sleeve off. You open it up.
Fancy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It has the sound effects. It was sitting on our dining room table, and it would just start firing off the music out of nowhere, like it kind of malfunctioned. And then on the front, you pull this out, and it has 3 types of candy inside. If you can see that. And these are a little different. This one has like these and I haven't eaten any of these yet because I wanted to wait until I showed them to you guys. Because these labels on the front with the characters, you peel those off to get inside the box. And I didn't want to do that until I showed them to you. But this has some kind of like chocolate pearls or something, and then more gummies. So this was really the only gaming related thing that I got for Christmas this year, but it was really cool. So props to my wife for that. There
we go again.
Anyway. There you go. That was my gaming Christmas gift that I got this year. I hope you guys got a bunch of cool and fun stuff. You guys may have not got to the zone yet Matt and I are in, where your family just doesn't buy you gaming stuff because they know that you're just going to buy it yourself and you probably already have everything. So I'm hoping that if you guys asked for gaming stuff for Christmas, you got it. Although I would argue the smarter thing in what I did this year, and I hope my wife isn't watching this when I say this, is that I banked stuff this year so I get rewarded next year when the consoles come out. So I got my wife a new Apple Watch for Christmas. And she was like blown away. She was like, oh my God, I can't believe you got me this, not knowing that it was all plan for me to get a console next Christmas. So hopefully you guys were as forward thinking as I was and you primed yourself because I don't
Very
know.
Machiavellian Christmas, everyone.
Exactly. So anyway, welcome to 2020. It's going to be a great year. We have 2 brand new consoles launching this year. Stadia kind of launching this year.
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of.
Apparently Destiny 2 is down half
Of what it was at launch. Yeah, it's not looking good.
Not great for a free game.
Yep, but this is going to be a gigantic year in video games, and I am just honored and proud to be able to enjoy it with you guys and share it with you guys. So let's get on with our 2020 preview. We're going to kick things off with Nintendo. I figured Nintendo was probably the right one to kick things off with because it's probably the most known quantity of 2020. In some cases, now that I've
we don't have to speculate on a launch lineup for anything.
Right. But now that I've put this together, a little dicey 2020 for Nintendo.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's some things we don't know about yet.
Yeah, because it's looking a little thin. So yesterday, DigiTimes, which is an Asian publication, which has been right on the money with manufacturing news over and over and over again, because a lot of gaming consoles, gaming hardware is assembled in Taiwan. They have contacts at the various manufacturing plants. They were basically told this week that there is a more powerful Switch coming. It's coming very soon, like in the middle of the year this year. Again, really reliable source. That's why we curated it to SIFTD. It looks like it's happening. Do you think that can be something that helps stave off the push of PS5 and Series X?
I mean, I don't really think they're particularly in competition with each other outside of just general market. Like, I can't see someone who wants a Switch holding off because they decide to buy a PS5. Like, there's such different lineups. You get such different things out of it. So I can't imagine Nintendo's too worried about that, but I certainly would buy a more powerful Switch.
I would too.
If it ran things, better. Because you can see the current Switch sort of straining.
It is. Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's a necessary thing if you're someone who cares about the performance of these games, and I do. So I was very happy to see that leak here today.
Yep, me too. I think it's needed. I think it's going to be needed at the end of the year as well.
Yes, definitely.
The idea that they would get it out in the middle of the year to get all the marketing and the messaging out there beforehand, also really smart.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's as long as everybody else is upgrading new consoles, you might as well give them kind of the Switch Pro.
Yeah.
And sort of make it look like you're all on the same page and sort of...
Here's our new console.
Yeah, you're kind of on the same page. You're not putting out a brand new Switch 2 or anything, but like at least everyone looks like they're moving forward.
Yeah. And then I wonder what the price drops to the OG Switch.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see that.
$249.
Like, maybe like it could, just because like price drops on like the 3DS and the Wii U were tough because the touchscreen costs what it costs, so it was always hard to. You never saw the deep discounts that other consoles get because the price of the components was always going to just sort of never drop that much. So I'm going to be interested to see how low a Switch can go.
Yep, something to watch for as the year moves on. Let's start talking about the games for Switch in 2020, and there are not a lot, Matt. Animal Crossing New Horizons coming on March 20th. At least for now, it's coming on March 20th. This whole show is like my fantasy team from 2019. All the big games that we're talking about today are all the games that I drafted that were pushed out. This, to me, based upon whether one other game comes out or not, looks to be the biggest Switch game for 2020.
From what we know of, yeah. I think Zelda's coming out this year.
You do?
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But aside from Zelda, it's probably the Switch's biggest product for 2020.
Certainly in terms of, I think, sales.
Yeah.
It's going to sell like crazy.
Yeah, it'll probably get up around the 10 mil mark,
I don't know if it will sell to me. I feel like I burned out on Animal Crossing about 5 games ago, but...
I felt that way about Pokemon, and I finished Sword and Shield. So, have you finished it yet?
Yeah, it's It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. That's the best way to describe it.
It's a good Pokemon game. Wasn't great.
Yeah.
But I liked it, and I'm sure the next one will be better.
I was surprised how much post-credits content there was.
Oh, that's Pokemon for you.
Yeah.
Hell, that's Nintendo for you these days.
Yeah, there was like 4 hours, roughly, that you got to play.
How much
after
of the average
credits?
Mario game is after the credits now? Like 80%?
Well, all of it, yeah. This game, though, I mean, typically Pokemon doesn't have that much of an end game.
Oh, yeah, it does.
For, like, single-player, story-driven stuff?
I mean, not so much single player, but, like, you have to be high enough level on a lot of the post-game stuff that, like, you're kind of playing a long time just in the sense of the grind.
I was just surprised that there was, like, a plot and story, and honestly, like, some of the biggest, like, plot points of the whole game happened after the credits.
I mean, also, I don't know if they'll ever top Gold and Silver,
where
the entire first game was after the credits.
Yeah, that's impossible to beat. But look, so my point was, I thought I was burned out on Pokemon. I still spent 40 hours playing Sword and Shield. My guess is when I get this code in my inbox and I download it, I'm probably going to get sucked into it all over again. I hate to admit it, but it's probably true. I will say this, it doesn't look like the game has all that many new features. I mean, other than kind of the island setting and online stuff.
You can move things.
Yeah. It's not revolutionary, I guess is the best way I would put it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there might be stuff we haven't seen yet.
Possible.
I'm sure there's a very deep dive direct in our future.
Yeah, there is a direct coming up soon.
Either this month or next month we'll get a big...
They'll blow it out, for sure. Up next, No More Heroes 3. It says it's coming in 2020. I'm not 100% convinced of that. I definitely will not be looking at this game in a fantasy draft.
No, I would definitely not go for that. Also, I wouldn't put it in a fantasy draft because
it's probably...
you just never know with this
It's
series.
true. It could be amazing. It could be absolutely terrible. Yeah.
And anything in between.
And I'm also, again, I'm not convinced that this game is actually going to come out this year. We just really got this first big trailer for the game just like a month or two ago.
Just at the Game Awards.
Yeah, it was just at the Game Awards. So we haven't really seen much gameplay of the game, just lots of fun kind of teasery stuff, which does not bode well for it making it out in the next 12 months. We'll see, but, the last No More Heroes was kind of like an indie game, and I don't think we should look at the development cycle of that and extrapolate that out to No More Heroes 3 and say, oh, this is also going to be finished really quickly.
No, there's a reason this has a number on it and not a weird subtitle.
Yep. Next up, Bayonetta 3. Also currently slated for 2020.
I think this one's coming.
I do too, because its Twitter feed has started to heat up.
Yeah.
The developers have started hinting at stuff. It looks like its marketing cycle's about to ramp up, and my guess is we get this at the end of 2020.
I feel like this might be like a Halloween.
That's true.
release.
That would be actually be smart to put this game out around Halloween. We haven't seen a lick of this either. So.
No, not since the announcement.
Yeah, I mean, this trailer that we have here is pretty much all we've got from the game so far. So lots of mystery, lots of surprises left in store for Bayonetta 3, but they need to do it pretty quickly if it's going to come out by the end of 2020.
Platinum gets stuff done, though.
It does, yeah. I mean, it very rarely misses its release dates once it kind of says when a game is coming out. So that has
Scalebound
notwithstanding, yeah. But who really knows what happened there?
Yeah,
I mean, they could have finished the game and Microsoft
get on it, Jason Schreier.
Yeah, and Microsoft was like, this just isn't good enough. We don't know. Maybe someday we'll know.
Yeah.
Up next, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. That's actually coming here in like a week or two. So basically, one of the best JRPGs from the last decade, reworked a little bit.
I would say it is the best.
Yeah, some people would argue that for sure.
This was a revelation when it came out, and I imported the European version to play on a hacked Wii because I wanted to play it so bad. And then, of course, it came here anyway. So I played it like that, and I played the American version when it came out as a GameStop exclusive because that was a great idea. And and then I played it again on Dolphin. Like this is one of my favorite games of. Did this come out this decade?
It should have.
2010, 2011?
Actually, right on the edge, I think.
Was it? I can't remember.
It probably is more than 10 years. Yeah.
This is definitely my top 10 for the decade. If it was in this decade, I can't remember. Or last decade. New decade now, yeah. But it's amazing, and it's a shame to me that the series just seems to be sliding downhill from here.
It kind of has been, yeah.
But the fact that they're willing to put this out again and like kind of be like, hey, remember this? Like at least kind of is a positive sign that they're not quite ready to just abandon the past of the franchise for this stupid anime boob fest.
They are adding content to this as well. I don't think it's a ton, but there is some new stuff that's going to be.
And I mean, it is a remake. It's not a remaster. Like all the character models are different. The backgrounds are like comparisons show that like they've remodeled everything.
Do you think that was smart?
I don't know about financially.
I guess was it worth it ultimately?
As someone who just wants to see this game look as good as it can, sure.
Hell yeah.
More people should get to play this, frankly.
Yep. Next up, Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE Encore. I don't know how much this has been remastered for Switch from Wii U.
Yeah, it looks like it's just sort of up-resed for the most part.
It doesn't look like they've done a ton of work on it, but this also is a great strategy-angled JRPG. And the FE, in case you guys aren't aware, stands for Fire Emblem. So there are Fire Emblem characters in this game as well. But it's really kind of like an idol-driven game. It's all about like pop stars, like Japanese pop stars, and
it is not what anyone imagined when they said we're doing a Persona Shin Megami Tensei crossover with Fire Emblem.
Ultimately, I think I was a little disappointed in the direction of the game, but it's still a great RPG.
Yeah, I mean, it fits into my usual thing where I'm just like, anything that was exclusive on the Wii U needs to be saved and brought forward.
And they did it.
If they did this one, you can do Wonderful 101. Come on.
That's true.
Capcom.
Yep.
Get on it.
Yep, and it's coming this month, so not long to wait for that on Switch. Next up, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, Metroid Prime 4. Is that coming out this year, Matt?
I don't think so.
I don't either, man. I really don't.
Yeah. It's it really feels, as from all reports, that they started over basically when Retro took over,
and that was only about a year.
That was a year and a half ago. Yeah. So I think 2021.
It's close. I think it's going to be close whether it makes it or not.
Yeah, like maybe we might get this before the end of the fiscal.
Next year, like before March of next year.
But I don't think we're seeing it this year.
I don't either. I hope I'm wrong, because I'm really excited to check it out, especially now that Retro is making it.
Yeah, but there's more thoughts on the Metroid situation, but I'll wait for one of our later segments for that.
Okay, and then last for the Switch, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild 2. You do believe it's coming this year?
I think that's coming this year.
Which game do you think has a higher probability of coming out this year, Breath of the Wild 2 or Metroid Prime 4?
Breath of the Wild 2 by exponentially.
Okay.
Like I think Breath of the Wild 2 has been in the works for maybe longer than we think. Especially because they said I think Breath of the Wild was supposed to have more DLC. And they said specifically, like, the reason Breath of the Wild 2 happened was in part because they were working on DLC, and they were like, why don't we just make a whole new game? Like, why don't we just take these ideas and make it into a full thing? And I fully, in the wake of Majora's Mask, which I'm not a huge Majora's Mask fan, but the idea of reusing the assets of something you spent all this time making, like Ocarina of Time, and then getting another game out of it by using a lot of the discarded ideas or different ideas that you wouldn't have put in kind of the initial game. I think Nintendo's had really great success with that. And just look at Majora's Mask or like Odyssey or not Odyssey, Galaxy 2, like two of their most
some of the best
games.
Ones. Yeah,
and that's how both of those came about. So I have very high hopes. I won't say expectations. I'll say hopes for Breath of the Wild 2, because a lot of times Nintendo really nails it when they get like a second go round.
Also, if there are dungeons in this game, I mean, this could be like Game of the Year 2020. Yeah. I mean,
and I think it's co-op.
You think you'll play the whole thing co-op?
I think you can. I think it's going to be Link and Zelda co-op.
Interesting. That would be huge. And if this game is as good as the first Breath of the Wild and it actually has dungeons, it will certainly be in consideration for me for Game of the Year.
I don't see how it wouldn't be.
Yeah. So big stuff potentially. Yeah. If it makes it out this year.
The only thing is, remember that. Breath of the Wild came out in March.
It did.
So, there's also precedent for waiting until then to put this out.
In 2021.
But you could argue that the reason it came out was because that's when the system came out and you needed to sell the system, which it certainly did. And in this case, you probably want to sell Switch Pros at Christmas in the face of two brand new consoles, and one of the best ways to do that would be like, here's a new frickin' Zelda game.
I mean, that's the only way to do it. Yeah. I mean, that's the only way.
One of the few things
really
that could pull attention away from two brand new consoles is a new Zelda.
And I mean, to be honest, the sequel to a Game of the Year. It wasn't my Game of the Year, but it was most everyone else's Game of the Year. That's a big deal. So,
taking advantage of the new, more powerful Switch that came out a few months earlier. I mean, there's a lot of synergy here
that they could do. What is your overall outlook for Switch in 2020? Because I have to admit, it's looking to me like it's starting to wane.
Maybe, but like I think there's stuff we don't know about yet.
Yeah.
Like, and I think Nintendo last year was really good about getting at least one thing worth playing out every month, and like I don't know if that's happening.
That's
this
not
month.
going to happen this year.
Oh, it's happening this month if you don't mind that they're remasters.
Yeah.
I guess. Certainly Xenoblade is.
Oh yeah,
something worth
it has
playing.
good games this year for sure. I don't think there's 12 though.
Maybe
where you're
I mean,
getting like one a month that you.
I mean,
really
I'm going to
wanna
wait
play.
until we've seen some directs in the first quarter before I start deciding their whole year's lineup is out the window. But like,
Chad is saying that there's a Pokemon related direct happening on Thursday
all right.
this week.
So there might be a bunch of.
Might be something else tossed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can't imagine Nintendo has not noticed how positive the response to last year was. So I think they will figure something out.
Yeah. But right now it's not looking great.
Yeah, right now it's iffy, but you could also say that the launch lineups for the new systems don't look great because we don't know anything.
And they probably won't be.
They probably won't be.
I mean, that's
When
just
are
kind of
they?
the way it works. Yeah. So Zelda could actually steal a good bit of thunder from those two at the end of the year. But I think what we're seeing here is Nintendo at this point has used all its IP for Switch. Like pretty much, there's been a mainline game in
Not
almost
all of it.
In almost every IP,
Where's
except
Mother
for
3?
yeah,
Where's 1080?
yeah. That's right. There was a rumor about a new 1080
1080 rumors
snowboarding.
were swirling at one point.
For a while. So maybe that's something that pops
Where's
up out of there.
F-Zero?
Wave Race, F-Zero. There's still some sitting out there.
Could be the year of the racing game.
It could be, and we need a year like that. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But I think what we're starting to see. This is the
Is it
pivotal.
time for a new Mario Kart?
Yeah, I mean they haven't released a new one for Switch.
Yeah,
Mario
just
Kart
the-
8's a
just
Wii U
the-
game.
Yeah, just the deluxe.
Yeah, I wonder how that would do after they've been bundling a Mario Kart 8 with Switch all this time. If people will care if there's a new one.
I don't know. If you put Mario Kart 9 as up alongside the Switch Pro,
It might do pretty well.
stranger things
Yeah.
have happened.
But this is the pivotal year for Nintendo. This is typically, although last year actually was typically where we saw Nintendo start to disappear. This really, though, would be the year where Nintendo just goes flatline and starts working towards this new platform.
Nintendo also had the advantage last year that everybody else just sort of went
Checked
quiet.
out.
Like, it
Yeah,
was
for sure. It
certainly
just
the
had
fact
year
that
to
Sony
itself.
ran silent and deep last year helped them.
Oh,
in that
yeah, for
regard.
sure. Yeah. Our platform of the year, both of us, for 2019. So you're right. There are some IP still floating out there Nintendo could potentially do something with to kind of save 2020. As it's looking right now, it would probably be the worst year for Switch. But, I mean, that's typical. You get
I don't
towards
know.
third or fourth year for a platform.
I thought the second year was not great.
Yeah.
I feel like if you even just get Zelda and a Xenoblade remaster out and Bayonetta 3, I'm going to be happier with this year than year 2.
Yeah, because remember the first year we got Zelda and
And
Mario.
Mario,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it left them with a little bit of a gap there for sure. But
No
matter
I mean,
what.
it looks pretty good to me just because there's a lot of stuff on that list that I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not the robust like holy crap, look at all this stuff that we had last year. But I don't know if we had that list last year at this time either.
I think the list looked better,
It looked better.
at this time last
Yeah.
year because they ended up delaying Animal Crossing out.
But I think I have some faith that Nintendo will have some aces up its sleeve for the first half of this year.
It kind of has to.
Yeah, and this is me talking. I don't have faith in Nintendo ever. So.
Yeah.
But I think they've kind of figured the rhythm out a little bit.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Xbox and Microsoft in 2020.
We'll talk about a short list.
Yeah, so I was like, talking about how Nintendo looked anemic in 2020. Microsoft looks even worse.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big game, Halo Infinite. I think we can all assume, even though we don't know 1,000% for sure, that is going to launch with Xbox Series X, although you'll also be able to play it on everything else. Do you see any way where it might come out for Xbox One and PC first and then come out for Series X at launch?
I don't think it's impossible, but I wouldn't do it that way.
It would be dumb
Yeah.
to do it that way. As much as I want to play it, and a lot of people want to play it, you need that for the splash when you launch
Yeah,
your
I
new
mean,
platform.
you can do day and date, certainly, with everything, but I wouldn't put it out first on the old stuff.
How much of a platform seller is Halo at this point, Matt?
I honestly don't know. I mean, there was the time where it was the platform seller, but Halo 3 was a long time ago, and I think 4 and 5 have lost the series some prestige.
For sure, yeah.
And I think, I'm happy with my Xbox One X. I am glad I got it. I got it very late in this cycle, but I'm not, I'm happy with it. But I think the majority of people into games are very wary about a new Xbox because they just don't know what's going to come for it, what's going to be on it. Like they don't, they're unsure of Microsoft being able to kind of provide the pipeline of original content that makes you constantly interested in owning that system the way Sony and Nintendo do. And even when they do, in the past, you've sort of been stuck with like, oh, I hope you like Gears, Halo, and Forza, because that's all it is.
Yeah.
And what they need to do is they need to like show that they're willing to and actively diversifying their lineup to kind of make someone feel that they're getting a complete platform in terms of what the exclusives are providing. And I feel like Microsoft hasn't done that since the 360 days.
I mean, really, it has been.
I mean, they could remedy some of this with like, more announcements of what their new acquisitions are working on.
Yeah.
Show us whatever that other thing Playground Games is making. Like, my guess is it Fable? Like, bring Fable back and you earn a lot of
seriously.
Goodwill for me. Obviously, because right now I think we're looking at Halo Infinite and Forza 8 are going to be the anchors for this launch.
Yep, looks that
way.
Again.
And it's just like, cool, but we've been here before, and as much...
we know how that plays out.
Right. Like, as great as Forza always is, and as great as Halo might be, now that they've kind of taken the time to step back and make it, revamp and kind of learn from the mistakes of 4 and 5... like, it doesn't do anything to change the pattern, in our pattern-seeking platformer nerd brains. Like, I look at that and, like, I can't get my lizard brain to stop being like, yeah, but that's what they did last time, and look how that turned out. They need to kind of shake the formula up a little bit and just make me feel like they're doing something different, not for the sake of doing something different, but because they've learned something from their mistakes in the last 2 generations.
Zikalia Seldom in chat is saying Xbox Game Pass is the best exclusive.
That is a good point.
That is a really good point.
That is also a very good point.
Nobody can offer that yet.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I have a feeling that Sony's probably cooking something up.
I think there's something in
They're not going to sit
there.
back and let that market just get taken by
And there's
Microsoft.
also, Pachter's right, I think, when he says that can't last forever. Because Microsoft's throwing so much money into that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a money pit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's fascinating.
I'll guarantee one thing. It's going to last past the launch of the Xbox Series X.
Oh, yeah.
And through the launch and a little bit past it. And then we'll see what Microsoft does based upon how the Series X does at launch. But, yeah. Next up, Gears Tactics. This is a game that we've known about for a long time. Really got the first good look at it at the Game Awards. Mm-hmm. I came away immensely impressed with this game. I am an XCOM fan. So to me, the idea of an XCOM set in the Gears universe was a good idea to begin with.
With crazy production values.
Yeah, and then you start to see the execution, and you're like, whoa. Like, I'm sure the developers...
Yeah, like, this doesn't look any worse than Gears 5.
No, heck no. It's impressive, man. Like, this could be, like, one of Microsoft's big games for this year. Obviously, it's going to strike an even bigger chord on PC, where players are typically, more familiar with strategy games like this game.
And if you have Game Pass...
There you go.
You're probably just gonna get it.
Play it for $10 for a month, and then you're done and move on. But then something else good comes out. So yeah, he's right. It's Xbox Game Pass, killer app, absolutely. Next up, Bleeding Edge. Gears Tactics, by the way, comes out.
I hate everything about that screenshot.
I should have mentioned Gears Tactics, its release date is April 28th, so not long to wait for that one. Bleeding Edge, its release date is March 24th, not long to wait for this either. This is Ninja Theory's fighting game. It's been an unknown quantity for a while. It was at E3 last year. The more I see it, I don't care about it any more than I did the first time I saw it. This kind of reminds me of, what was that MOBA shooter that 2K published? That did terrible. Something ground. Battleborn, yeah. I'm getting a Battleborn vibe from this because it's a character-driven game where I have absolutely no affinity for the characters.
Yeah.
And that's the death knell. If you have a game that's driven by the characters and your characters aren't interesting, and I struggle to find how any of these are, I think you got a problem. It seems like this game was something Ninja Theory was working on for a while, and then Microsoft acquires them, and they're like, hey, look at this thing we've been working on. I know you need games out of your new first-party studios. Here's one we could get out of the door pretty quick. I don't know that for a fact. I don't have any information that is pointing to that. I'm just guessing, because this game was shown very quickly after Ninja Theory was acquired by Microsoft. So my guess is it was under development for a while, and then Microsoft acquired them. And so I don't think it's like a quick and dirty job. I just think either you have the ability to design characters people care about, or you don't. And this lot
Yeah. Well, there's also an element of, like, it really looks to me, like, I look at this and I just see, like, do Overwatch, but not. And, like, that's about as far as they went in terms of planning the aesthetic. And that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not an idea, you know? Like, and it looks like an Overwatch. It looks like if you went to like Walgreens and saw like a bunch of knockoff toys in like a fake Overwatch packaging.
You're right. I saw lots of stuff like that shopping for nieces and nephews over the holidays. Yeah, if you're not in on that stuff, like it's easy to get duped.
Like this is like if you wanted like a transformer and someone comes back and buys you a trans converter
or a GoBot. Yeah, or he comes back and you get GoBots. Well,
at least a GoBot is an actual brand,
right?
And not some like weird thing made out of like scrap plastic somewhere.
Yeah, I don't anticipate this game doing very well or moving the needle for Microsoft.
No, but it's probably going to be on Game Pass. So I bet a lot of people will play it just out of morbid curiosity.
Yeah, because it's free. Absolutely. Next up, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This is definitely coming out in 2020. We have a hard release date of March 11th. Yet another game that burned me in our draft last year. Do we even need to talk about this game? It's gorgeous. The first game was highly emotionally charged. If they can bring the same elements from the first game into this one, I'm sold. To me, this is one of the surest bets in indie gaming for 2020.
Yeah, no question.
I can't think of too many other indie games where I could
I mean, I don't know if I'd call it an indie game since it's made by Microsoft, but...
Is it, though? I mean, I know that they put their money behind it, but
yeah, I don't know.
It's still a smaller studio that makes it. But it's also been delayed for like 3 years.
Right, but remember that indie doesn't mean small studio. It means independently funded. So I don't know what their funding's like.
That's true. That's a good point.
Star Wars Episode 1 is an indie movie.
Yeah, I guess technically it is. Yeah, absolutely.
All the prequels are indie movies.
Yeah, that's crazy.
People don't like to say that, but they are.
They are. It's true. Yeah, you're right. Like that nomer indie carries different connotations depending on the industry that you're in. But you're right. Generally, it should be. You know, you're independent. You're doing it all on your own. You're not supported by someone else. So I could see where the argument for this would say that this is not an indie game.
It does sometimes. People just use it to mean like.
2D game.
2D or boutique or smaller scale budget, but at that point, Yoshi's Story is a freaking indie game. You know, so.
We struggle with that sometimes curating on SIFTD, at least I do, because we have an indie channel. And if we can tag stuff to it, it's hard to decide sometimes whether something is indie or not. And you're right. A lot of the times, the cutoff is it 2D or 3D? Mm-hmm. 80 to 90% of 2D games today are indie games. At least that's how we have them designated on SIFTD if you go to that channel. So... yeah, it's an indie that isn't. It's a big budget indie, I guess is the best way to put it.
I mean, that's a more and more common thing now.
Yep. And then lastly, yes, we're at the end of Xbox already. That's what 2020 is looking like. Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've both gushed over this game over and over here on GameFace. Probably the best looking game in the industry right now. I don't know that that's going to increase its profile and bump up sales. It's a huge set of fans who have supported it for a long time. I don't see pretty visuals being a tipping point where more casual folks jump on it because it's always had pretty visuals relative to everything else out there. So I don't see it being like this smash hit or anything like that, but I think fans of the franchise are going to be very, very happy.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of branch out potential for this. But again, you put it on Game Pass, you're probably getting some people trying it that wouldn't try it otherwise. You never know.
That's true.
But I played the Microsoft Flight Simulator. They're fun if you are interested in planes, and if you're not interested in planes, you will not last 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, because it is a simulation. About as hardcore of a simulation as you can get.
There's obviously levels of simulation. You can turn it down to basically arcade, but at that point, like you're just flying.
What's the point? Then the game's really boring. There's not much to do. So
unless you want to look at, there's some very accurate scenery in this.
Oh yeah. I mean, about as accurate as it gets. It's straight from Google, from satellites.
There's a lot of Australia in there. You could go see what Australia used to look like.
Oh man. I don't know.
Before we ruined everything.
I wanted to laugh at that joke, but I can't.
I don't even know if that was a joke.
Yeah. Seriously.
Like
you may have to go to that to see what Australia once looked like.
It's horrifying.
It's really awful. Absolutely. To our brothers and sisters in Australia, man, we are thinking about you guys. I know there's a narrative out there that no one cares about what's going on in Australia. We care. I care. So you guys in Australia, man, we're thinking about you guys.
I think most people in California care because we've lived through the fire thing.
Yeah. I've actually donated some money to Australia to try to help. It's a drop in the bucket, obviously, but I'm trying to do what I can. So, yeah, our our hopes are out to you guys. We're thinking about y'all in Australia. We know we have a lot of people from Australia on SIFTD, so thinking about you guys. Anyway, we got off on a tangent there. Let's look at Microsoft more broadly for 2020. This is not encouraging, what we just went through. You got a console launching at the end of the year. I think Microsoft needs a lot of Series X games to show off over the next,
Well, I think we're going to get a lot of announcements at E3.
We need them. They need them, big time.
We can only hope that more of them are launch day instead of launch window.
Right. And my guess is most of them will be launch window.
Yeah, I feel like we might end up in that situation where it's like all this stuff's coming, not now, but it's coming. You know,
not when you want it, which is now.
But buy the system anyway and just sort of wait until next year.
I mean, we have done that many times.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, most launch lineups are pretty terrible for consoles.
But there's a point, you know, if you're only going to buy one, you got to buy the one that you think is going to entertain you the most immediately. And I don't know, like it's hard to think Microsoft's going to be that one.
I don't think Halo's enough. I mean,
I don't think so.
Be perfectly at one time it was. It's not anymore. I don't think you can just stack Halo in your launch lineup and just assume it's going to be a success anymore. You just can't.
No, I think it's for one thing, I think gaming has become broader. It's not defined by the FPSs anymore. Yep. And on top of that, I think Halo has to prove itself again.
Yeah, it's been on a little bit of a rough patch here. Not terrible, but not great.
But
and
not
you expect greatness from Halo.
Yeah, but you're not talking about if you're not thinking about Halo in the same category as something like Breath of the Wild or Last of Us 2 or
where you're just like automatic game of the year candidate.
Yeah, the exclusives that get like massive and instant praise.
Yeah. So Game Pass. I mean, it's a good thing Microsoft has Game Pass. I mean, our chat was right. It is a killer app, but it's going to need it. I mean, it's looking like the launch lineup is going to be pretty anemic for this thing. If we haven't seen any of these games, and if they do come out at launch, I mean, you got to realize that's only about 10 months away.
Yeah.
My guess is those games are really short experiences or almost like borderline tech demos, which, again, pretty typical for launch lineups. Mm-hmm. So
I'm sure they'll all be better than that stupid Gundam game I had to review for the PS3 launch.
Yeah, that game was awful. I would say of the big three, though, Microsoft has the most work to do in 2020. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Next up, VR. You thought Microsoft was brief. This is even more brief, which is weird because it's kind of hitting its stride right now. But there aren't a ton of big games, at least right now, scheduled and announced for 2020. Obviously, the biggest of which, Half-Life Alyx, coming in March. The game that everyone's kind of hanging their hat on to turn VR mainstream. I don't think it's going to do that because Half-Life was never really a mainstream franchise.
No.
I feel like you need something like a Spider-Man or something based on an IP that people really care about and really resonate with.
Yeah. And I mean, Half-Life was that at one point. I don't know if it still is.
Oh, it's been 20 years?
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that people still care about this IP shows you the power that it once had. Because a lot of IP comes back after that long and no one even bats an eyelash. So Valve helps, obviously. It's pedigree, and people know that when it makes games, generally they come out really good. But this is, I will say this, I mean, it is the most full-featured, seemingly complete VR game that I've seen so far. And it also utilizes all the new technology of VR, like the Knuckles controllers and individual digit movement and all that kind of stuff. If this doesn't do it, I wonder if anything ever will.
True.
It is, in my opinion, the biggest VR game ever.
I mean, I don't know what would be bigger.
Yeah. This is the one that could do it. Even if it's really well received, I wonder if it will.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd do it overnight.
Yeah. Word of mouth could eventually spread. And I mean, the other problem, too, is you're not getting a lot of marketing for VR. I did see some Oculus commercials over the holidays during football games, but I didn't see any PlayStation VR commercials. I've never seen a commercial for just a VR game. Have you?
No.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen commercials for, like, Resident Evil 7, which is also playable in VR, but I've never seen a commercial for just a VR game. And that's something that's probably going to have to change if this platform is really going to take off. Half-Life Alyx, definitely a great step in the right direction. Next up, Medal of Honor Above and Beyond.
And this is Respawn?
Yep. A small team at Respawn is creating this, reviving the Medal of Honor franchise, which has been dormant for several years at this point. I mean, actually, probably half a decade at least at this point.
A long time.
It's been quite a while. This, to me, is not going to move the needle either. I think people who have an HMD are probably excited about this game, but it's not going to make VR suddenly become the hot new thing. And at this point, I'm wondering if there's ever going to be anything that will.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if there is something, we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, or we'd be making it.
Yeah.
We'd be trying to make it. We'd be trying to get money to make it or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see Medal of Honor come back. I think it's, the fact that it's a VR game is going to exclude most players. Maybe this is the last Medal of Honor game ever. It very well could
like every
be.
Medal of Honor game could be the last.
It's
Medal of
true,
Honor
yeah.
game
I mean, after the last one, it was a long time, so it's very, very possible. And then the last really high-profile VR game we want to talk about from 2020, yes, just 3, is The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. This is a VR game set in the Walking Dead universe. It's a first-person action-adventure with shooting. Zombies, do people care still?
I mean, there's been a lot of VR zombie games already. I don't know if the Walking Dead license really moves that needle.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the Walking Dead license moves any needle anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like that ship has sailed at this point.
Pretty much.
I think the only way you would have a chance to be successful is if you made a game based on the show that was a narrative-driven, single-player experience.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about, like a story-driven experience where...
like a Days Gone.
Right,
kind of thing.
yeah. That, to me, is the only way I think where this would add some cachet to an IP. This game's also been delayed several times, and...
Doesn't look like it runs too well either.
Yeah, I mean, even when the game is chugging in your trailers, that's a bad sign.
Yeah. Especially in
That's
VR.
a really bad sign.
You know what, chugging in VR, that's just nausea.
You know what it'll do to me? It's projectile vomiting incoming, for sure.
You want to mention Iron Man?
Oh, we have Iron Man somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah. But, so that's it for, mostly, this is mostly PC VR stuff for this section. Okay. PlayStation VR stuff is in the Sony section later. So that's really it for the big VR stuff. I've seen some other publications throughout Boneworks, but Boneworks was released in December. I do have a feeling that game is going to get a lot better in 2020 because it was released a little rough around the edges. So I have a feeling most people are going to discover the game this year, and then by the end of 2020, they're probably going to look back and say Boneworks was one of the best VR games they played, but it technically came out last year. So we'll see how it goes. Next up.
That happened with Dark Souls a lot.
Yeah.
People didn't get to Dark Souls until later.
That's true.
And they're like, that was my game of the year. It's like, it came out last year.
Yeah.
Like, well, I didn't play it till this year. It's like, well, that's not what that means.
That's your problem. Yeah, exactly. Next up is third party. This is a big, big, big one. There's probably, 20 games in here, something like that. I will say this. In years past, this section was double or triple this size. So it's big, but it's small, relatively speaking. And I think what we're just seeing is the winding down of one generation, transitioning into the next. Yeah. Some of the games in here may not even come out this year. We'll see. First up is Babylon's Fall. It's scheduled for 2020. We just finally got its second trailer after begging for it for a new one for over a year. So it's still coming. They are still saying that it's on target for a 2020 release. We've seen so little of the game. I am not inclined to believe it'll come out this year.
Maybe. I mean, it's platinum, so it's hard to predict, what is a normal amount to show of something for them. Because, they work for so many different companies that, they don't really have a pattern in that regard. But this looks pretty far along in terms of, mechanics. I guess it just depends whether they've got the whole game done.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if it came out this year. But also wouldn't surprise me if it didn't.
Yeah.
So it's not really a make or break for me for 2020, I guess I would say. But I like the look of it. It's kind of a...
You can definitely tell it's a platinum game.
Definitely tell it's a platinum game. Has kind of a near meets Dark Souls thing going on in terms of the aesthetics.
With Devil May Cry, too, though, with the air juggles and stuff like that. Maybe it reminds me a lot of Devil May Cry, actually. A little bit more Japanese sort of history involved. But, the way it plays, the aesthetics of it, definitely remind me of DMC, which is not a bad thing. No. Obviously, we don't get hardly any of those anymore. So...
Even looks a little like a little astral chain.
Yeah,
in there too.
It looks like it matched up like every game they've ever made.
Yeah, it just looks like maybe this is Platinum's all the ideas we had to discard. We're just gonna make a whole game out of them.
Yeah, Yep, and that's currently scheduled, I believe, for PC, PS4, and Xbox One. No Switch right now. That could change. Next up,
I wonder how much of that is it on Switch will change with the advent of the more powerful.
that could absolutely help, for sure. And maybe that's part of the onus on why Nintendo's doing it. It's like, look, we're sick of these partners telling us that our console can't run their games. So
Yeah.
maybe they're like, you know what, we need to fix this. It does need to fix it. Next up, Cyberpunk 2077, coming out April 16th as of right now. For both of us, our most anticipated game of 2020, as we awarded it at our Game of the Year Awards at the end of last year. I don't know that we need to say anything else about this game at this point.
Not really. Although I wonder, in the wake of The Witcher on Netflix, if this might be something Netflix would then look at.
For a TV series.
For a TV series.
I mean, it makes too much sense. Be big budget, though. To do it, you have to put a lot of money behind it.
But they already put a lot of money behind The Witcher.
They did. Witcher has proven results, though.
And obviously The Witcher was more based on the books, but I think they must have heard of it from the games.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And since that was a winner, most watched streaming show of December, even more than Mandalorian, which, to be fair,
I heard last night, we were having dinner, and I heard the table next to us talking about The Witcher. And they were obviously not gamers.
Yeah, everyone I know up north, all talking about The Witcher.
Yeah.
And like, wasn't that thing you play? I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, it was the thing I played
it is a video game, yeah.
Like, they vaguely knew that they're like, oh, this is really good. I'm just like, yeah, it is. Like,
yeah, I would not be surprised at all.
Why don't you believe me?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they made a TV series for that. Yeah. And it just makes too much sense, honestly.
Yeah, it's it would be expensive, but I don't think it'd be more expensive than The Witcher. And,
they put a nice budget behind that.
There's not a lot of competition in terms of this. Cyberpunk is hard to do in film and TV. They don't, they tend to kind of burn out or fail.
I don't know if I've ever seen a Cyberpunk TV show.
There've been I would say like that stupid spin-off, not spin-off, but it was Chris Carter's show he tried to do during the X-Files. It lasted like 3 episodes. Harsh Realm. Like,
I remember that.
Stuff like that. Like stuff like that pops up, but like nothing really ever comes of them, and they tend to vanish really quick because it's just not something people are interested in. But I think as we move forward into living a cyberpunk future in which all the bad parts of cyberpunk are happening, but none of the good ones are happening, because where is my cybernetic arm, you fuckers? Like, I think it becomes more and more interesting as the setting becomes more and more relatable.
Yep, absolutely. I would not be surprised if next year sometime they announce this.
I mean, I could accept some of this late-stage capitalism bullshit if you put some more neon around, people. Give me something to look at.
Up next, another game that was delayed from my fantasy team last year, Doom Eternal. Coming March 20th. March is going to be a great month, man.
March is huge.
It's insane.
The first 4 months of this year are huge.
January is not great, but then...
I mean, January for me is just Xenoblade.
And Dragon Ball Z Kakarot comes out this month.
I'm not playing that crap.
Yeah, I'm going to have to.
I played that at E3.
Yeah, that was enough.
It was not good.
Well, that was enough. So Doom Eternal finally coming out. They never really explained why it was delayed that last time.
No, we never got a reason for that.
Yeah, I mean... Obviously, it's going to make the game. The game's going to be better for it.
I assume it was to screw your fantasy team over.
Yeah, exactly. They targeted me specifically.
Said one too many bad things about Bethesda on the show, and they're like, all right, move Doom.
They're like, screw that $500 million we'll make. It's on Shane's fantasy team.
We're going to make Shane Satterfield sad.
It's very possible. I was surprised that this was delayed. It was the most surprising delay from last year.
Definitely.
But I'm sure we're going to get a great game when it ultimately comes out. I'm okay with the extra time, minus getting screwed on my fantasy team. There were so many good games last year. We didn't even really need this game, per se. It's going to be a great start to 2020, though, when it releases in March. Next up is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, as we just mentioned. It is a pseudo-open-world action RPG. It's actually not in an open world. It's kind of like God of War. It has big open areas, but there ultimately is loading in between those areas. Like you said, I played this at E3. I was not impressed. I will say this. It was one of the most popular games at E3.
Yeah, huge.
As far as the lines waiting for people to play it. I think it's going to do well for Bandai Namco.
I think it's going to do really well. I mean, it's the people that grew up with this in the West, or not even the West, America, because it aired in Europe in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like my friends who grew up in Europe all love it because they watched it when they were kids. It didn't come here until I was like 22, and it was too late. Like, even though I do like anime stuff, I could not get into this show. And I had to watch the whole thing because I worked at a video game store that was attached to a record store. And the owner of the record store could not stand this show. And so he would make his grandkids come watch it in my store. So I had to watch the whole damn thing.
Oh, man.
And I
don't understand.
I'm sorry if you grew up with it and you love it. I get it. I love some really terrible cartoons from the 80s. But, like, this show blows.
Yeah,
and
I don't get it either. But
I will say this. Playing the game, I didn't like the game when I played 83. But, like, it looks great.
Oh, I mean, it looks just like the show.
It's just like the show. And I can tell from what I vaguely remember of the show, like, there's a whole bunch of references to things. And every, like, little thing is kind of recreated. The storylines are all in there. Like, if that's what you want, it's all there for you.
I just don't want.
It's just not.
I just don't want.
It's not what it missed me.
Yep. Next up, Dying Light 2. I was all over this game at E3 after I saw an amazing demo. They still haven't really released the whole thing that I saw from E3. They've released some of it. They haven't really shown some of the branching story path stuff that really kind of blew. But look.
That's a tough demo.
It is. That's a tough demo. It was over an hour when I saw it at E3, so I understand why they haven't released it yet. But trust me, people, when you finally get to see kind of how the story works in this game, you're going to be impressed with it. Provided they can extrapolate that out to the entire game. And that one section that I saw wasn't just like, yeah, we do that, and then the rest of the game doesn't do that. The first Dying Light, huge seller, probably the biggest sleeper hit of that generation.
Pretty big, and I played it a lot. Like, I kept going back to it.
Well, it was like 50 or 60 hours long.
I went long. With the DLC, I think I played almost 100 hours.
Yeah, it was a big game, and I expect nothing
and
less.
It was good. The funny thing
is a real open world game.
I was like kind of lukewarm on it early on, and then like I went back to it after a while and started playing again, and then I got the grappling hook, and I'm like, oh,
it changes the game.
That's what this game is. Yep. So, and then I just kept playing and playing and playing and playing.
Yep, and this
game
I'm
has not been
rushed.
This.
Yeah, they've given themselves plenty of time to develop the sequel, which is smart because, wow, they're like, holy crap, we never dreamed the first game was going to do as well as it did. We can't screw this up. It doesn't look like they're going to.
No, and it's like the story stuff is great, and it's written by Chris Avellone.
Yep,
who gave us
so many good
Planescape
things.
Torment, KOTOR 2. Like the dude is one of the all-time great writers in gaming. So
yep.
I think this is one to watch. It might be a little under the radar right now in the mainstream, but keep an eye on this one. This is going to take some people by surprise, I think.
Absolutely. The only release date we have for that so far is just Q2. They haven't given us a date. Anytime you just have the Q whatever, there's always the risk of a delay.
Yeah. Well, also the nightmare here is that they put it out too close to Cyberpunk.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like, get this thing away from Cyberpunk.
You might want to delay this game until, late summer, early fall.
Yeah.
That might be smarter, honestly.
I mean, I'd love to play it sooner, but...
And they have the wiggle room to do it.
You're not missing fiscal year, so...
Yeah. Yeah. You're already going to miss that. So,
yeah,
it makes sense. Next up, Gods and Monsters. This is scheduled for Q3.
Originally scheduled for this month.
Yeah, right? Which is really weird. We still have not seen anything from this game other than this trailer.
And this is a year old?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game Awards previous year?
Yeah. So it is scheduled for Q3 right now. You think it's coming this year?
Maybe.
I'd give it about a 50% chance. Ubisoft is not shy about delaying games.
Right, but I also think it depends in the sense that, like, if Zelda is coming this year, I think you have to get this out first.
You do.
Because it's so rooted.
It's going to be compared to...
It's so rooted in kind of the look of the first Breath of the Wild. I mean, clearly it's taking a lot from Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because it's like sort of... It might be
the same
recycling
team
some things.
making it, yeah.
But, like, I don't think you want this compared to a new Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, probably not.
So I would say you really want to get this thing out here by like September.
And this one is coming to Switch, unlike a lot of these other third-party games. I like what I've seen.
Yeah,
we just haven't seen squat. That's the problem.
I just think there's a chance you could get buried if you don't make it out before the game. The sequel to the game you're kind of aping.
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, they either need to get it out middle of this year or early next year.
Yeah.
And just
get it away from Zelda.
Yeah, and who knows when Zelda's coming out. But if Ubisoft, my guess, will have a rough idea of whether that's happening or not.
Yeah, I mean, I would not at all be surprised if that ended up being a spring 2021 thing.
Yeah, and again, Ubisoft not shy about delaying games.
And I don't think it matters beyond kind of getting away from Zelda.
Yeah.
When you put it out, like no one's waiting for this.
Yeah, I mean the other thing too is that it is coming out for PS4 and Xbox One and PC. So you're right, you would lose a lot of sales on Switch, but I don't know how much you'd lose on the other platforms.
True.
So something to consider. Next up, Guilty Gear Strive, the brand new Guilty Gear. This game is supposed to revive the franchise. What I've seen so far of it, I'm not so sure about that.
I mean, mostly it just looks really pretty.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, cell shaded,
and there does seem to be a little bit of kind of the Samurai Showdown like give and take gameplay put in here. So it does look different from Guilty Gear. I don't know how different it's going to end up being, but it's nice. You know, it's always nice to see, especially these kind of anime fighters, like mix it up a little bit, and
because they never change.
Because they don't tend to change.
They really don't, man. They'll tout some new feature, and then you actually play the game, and you realize it's just this insignificant, like little add-on.
Yeah, like they're really going hard on the cinematic angle on this, and it's going to be interesting.
You think that's the right move?
Well, I mean, I think it worked for Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like I think it depends. You're always questioning, like, will the audience, especially the tournament scene, embrace that?
To me, with this franchise in particular, that's really important.
Yeah. And I don't know. I haven't really been keeping up with what like kind of public opinion is on this so far. If there even is substantial public opinion, because we haven't really seen a whole lot.
Yeah. To me, this franchise should be more concerned about substance than style. That's just me. I think the people who play Guilty Gear play it because of its tournament-ready status and the fact that it doesn't have a lot of bloat, it doesn't have a lot of extras. It's just a really solid, good fighting franchise. I don't know. Like I feel like if you were to add something like finishers or fatalities or something,
they've had those from the beginning.
Have they?
Well, they've had insta finishers, that are hard to they're hard to pull off. But like, there's a ton of weird little mechanics like that in there. It's the question is like, is moving the camera around so much and making it such a cinematic sort of like stop and go thing? It's like it almost has a Mortal Kombat rhythm to it in this trailer. It's just gonna, can they make it feel like Guilty Gear while changing it up that much and get the fans to accept it?
This game is scheduled for Q4 right now, which means it probably won't come out this year.
Pretty good chance.
We'll see. They just started showing it off at the end of last year.
This would be a real nice January game.
Yeah, it makes too much sense for January, actually. It would be nice if we had this game in January, because this month is really freaking dry. Next up, Journey to the Savage Planet. This is kind of an indie game that's been generating kind of big-budget hype over the last 12 months. It is an exploration-driven adventure game, a comedic, sort of tongue-in-cheek aesthetic. I have not played this yet. I did not play it at E3. I've not got any code for this, so I really can't pass much of a judgment on how good it's going to be. It certainly has an interesting premise, which is what seems to be resonating with everyone who's checked it out. But it's an exploration-driven adventure game set in a very strange, very comical sci-fi universe. So it's generating a lot of hype right now. I'm not 1,000% sure why. I feel like I've seen a lot of games like this that looked interesting, and then you play them and they're not so much. But I don't know. Check out the trailers for this game. It's pretty much unlike anything I've seen before, which in 2020 is not an easy ask. So I thought it was worth bringing up on the show today. Some people may have never even heard of it, to be honest with you. Next up, Lego The Skywalker Saga. Matt, we were talking about the latest Star Wars film right before we started recording. You are not a big fan of it.
No.
Will that affect your enjoyment of this game?
I don't think so. I mean, there's 8 other movies in it.
Yeah.
So, and hell, maybe in a Lego form, the last movie will make more sense.
Do you think it's redundant because it does include all? There's already been like Star Wars Lego games.
Yeah, but these are all new.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're just putting the old
ones in. Yeah, they didn't port
in.
the old ones in or anything, but I just wonder if...
It's fun. I mean, I like the idea of a kind of a definitive, here's all 9 episodes in a Lego form, like, with all our modern stuff and modern tech and ideas, and there you go. Like,
yeah.
It's a cool kind of, like, button on it.
And that is coming out this year.
There's no date yet.
No hard date for it. They just said 2020. But again, the promotion for this is starting to ramp up. Traveler's Tales Twitter feed is starting to get more active and start talking about it.
I think we'll see it before the end of March.
Yeah. These games are rarely, if ever, delayed.
My guess would be this would come out. Actually, this would probably come out around the time the movie comes out on Blu-ray.
That's my guess. Yep. Which will be... Do you know yet?
March-ish.
Have they announced
March
it?
or April, I think.
Okay. Do they hold Star Wars films longer than...
No.
They don't?
Nobody really... Hell, they sent out screeners for this one.
Really?
Oscar screeners. I've never seen a Star Wars movie do that before.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's technical awards.
Right, that's true.
They'll win some...
That's true.
Well, they'll get nominated. ILM doesn't tend to win Oscars because the Academy doesn't like ILM.
Why?
Because ILM was part of George Lucas, and George Lucas famously back in the day, remember what I said about the prequels being indie movies, back when the original trilogy was happening, he famously thumbed his nose at the Hollywood establishment and was like, I don't need you.
And he didn't.
And he didn't. And he and Spielberg kind of did that, and they never really forgave George for that.
That's so silly.
It is.
He's not even involved anymore.
I don't know if you know this, Shane, but there's a lot of egos in Hollywood.
Yes, I am very well aware of that. Los Angeles is like one big ego. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what it is. For all good, there's some good that can come out of that. Mostly bad though. Next up, Marvel's Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
right, this exists.
Yes, it's still coming. Are you more excited for this game now than you were now that it's kind of got out from the pack of all the really good games of 2019? Do you care more?
I don't know if I care more. I mean, I'm going to play it. Like, I'll give it a shot. It's like the idea of it is kind of what I've wanted from Avengers stuff for a while, but we just got to see how it feels. You know? Like, if you got to make me feel good playing as Iron Man, playing as Cap, playing as whoever.
My guess is, I mean, it's coming out May 15th right now. Mm-hmm. That's its release date. My guess is over the next few months, we are just going to be bombarded by this game.
I would think so.
I mean, they have to bombard us with this game.
Bombard it with it. They'll attach it to a lot of promotion for Black Widow.
Yep. Any Marvel thing that they can, they're going to try to tie it to it in some way. And again, it's only smart to do that. Ultimately, the proof is going to be in the pudding, and the game's going to have to be good, though.
Yeah.
No matter how much cross promotion you do, if the game sucks, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, do we have another Anthem on our hands here? Like, that's the real question.
I feel like public opinion on this game has shifted towards the positive since its initial showing.
Which is kind of funny because I think the negative reaction to the initial showing helped temper expectations when people finally saw the demo.
I also feel like maybe they were a little bit overblown.
The press really went hard on this thing at E3, and then like everybody saw it and they're like, "Yeah, that doesn't look great, but it looks fine."
It's actually not it doesn't look like a terrible game, and we shouldn't expect a developer like this to put out a terrible game. But still,
I mean, I thought that at E3 too. I was like, "Yeah, it didn't look inspired at all," and a couple parts just looked like they went on too long, but like. It didn't look bad.
No. And that was kind of the impression I felt like the press was imparting on consumers.
Maybe everybody just really thought they were going to look like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. I don't know.
But I don't know either. But, yeah. And I'd liked, too, that the feedback that it got from E3, it immediately implemented. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't one of these like, we know better than you do. They were like, nope, we're going to listen to you guys.
Although initially they were like, we're not going to change the character models. And then the next time they're like, Thor looks a little different, guys.
They absolutely did. Yeah, so it's good that they're listening to fans, but ultimately at this point they're buttoning it up and trying to get it finished. So again, coming out May 15th, PC, PS4, Xbox One. That's Marvel's Avengers. Next up, Minecraft Dungeons. Basically, an RPG set in the Minecraft universe. Not much else to say about it. It's coming to everything. It's coming to all major platforms, including Switch. What I've seen of it so far has not been particularly inspiring.
As John Oliver might say,
cool. Yeah, I love how he does that. He has managed to turn the word cool into have like 8 levels of meaning now. It's so hilarious when he does that. But you're right. That's exactly what this game is. That's cool. Yeah, not a lot to say about it either. It hasn't really made a big impression, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think it's for us. It's a younger audience.
Yep. Next up, Oddworld Soulstorm, the first Oddworld in forever.
Long time. Right
now, it's currently slated for early 2020. We still haven't seen much of the game in action. There's like 3 pieces of media that's been released for it so far. I highly doubt.
All-new second episode of the Oddworld Quintology.
Yeah, okay.
What?
Whatever.
So this is the second part after the first one that came out in like 95?
Right.
Like,
I guess. I don't know.
okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem with this is that I know that they've tried to keep this franchise front and center with remasters in HD, blah blah blah. It just hasn't really seemed to catch fire.
I never really liked this franchise. Something about it like makes my skin crawl. Frankly, I did like Stranger's Wrath a lot. I thought that was a very clever game.
That was like a shooter.
Fun. Yeah, and like just like the relationship you built with the living ammo was like a very interesting idea.
Yeah.
But,
well, right there it just said 15 million sold.
I mean, they're definitely successful.
I mean, is that successful though?
Since 95, maybe, or whenever it came
Yeah,
out.
that's what I'm saying. Like, it's never really been a smash hit. I mean, there's been, 6 games at this point?
Yeah.
And they've sold 15 million?
But it's still here.
It is.
More than a lot of them can say.
Somehow Lorne's still making games. This, to me, is one of those games that just gets released and then disappears and
I would think
it's
so.
off in the ether. I mean, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope it's the best game of 2020. That would be awesome. I don't know. Based upon what's been happening with this franchise for the last, really, decade at this point, it's hard to have a lot of faith. But we'll see. Again, coming to all platforms. No hard release date other than early 2020, and I do not believe that that's going to happen.
No, this feels like you're going to maybe see it in August.
I'd even be surprised that, again, we haven't seen hardly anything. I don't know. It looks like almost like a Lemmings, like Minions game.
I mean, they've always been kind of like that.
Yeah,
Side
where you're
scroller, gather the guys, run,
Yeah.
lead them through the puzzle. Like, oops, they killed them all. Got to start over.
Yeah, it looks like they haven't changed from that. Next up, Outriders. This is People Can Fly's new shooter.
Oh, right.
Which is the studio that created Bulletstorm. Bulletstorm is a very polarizing game. Some people either love it or people hate it. I don't think anyone can deny that it was at least unique.
Sure.
And so this is that studio's brand new IP, published by Square Enix, I believe. Yeah.
That sounds
I think
right.
Square is the publisher. Haven't seen a ton from this either, other than this very short teaser trailer. I don't see any mechanics in this that seem unique.
No, I don't really know what the hook is here yet.
Yeah.
But People Can Fly always has one.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, what is it? Like, other than sci-fi shooter. Like,
I assume it has something to do with those little sparks that keep circling around everybody.
yeah, well, as you can see, you also have, like, magical
Powers
and so, yeah, it's definitely a futuristic sci-fi, probably dystopian something or other.
Video games.
Yeah, I think it is a squad-based shooter, though, which is something that People Can Fly hasn't really done. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that, and maybe that's where they find their unique twist on shooters this time, is in how they handle their co-op. We'll see. But this is scheduled for PC, PS4, Xbox One right now. No Switch version planned for now. Next up, Psychonauts 2. This game's been in development forever. It was it was crowdfunded.
The first Fig.
Yeah, it was the first Fig project. It still hasn't come out, and then Microsoft purchased.
But it's real good.
Yeah, I'm sure
at
it is.
E3, what they showed was like Psychonauts never left. That's the most impressive thing about seeing this at E3 was how much it felt like a direct continuation of the first game.
Yeah.
And they haven't, it's double fine, but like they haven't lost their stride on what this is supposed to be at all. Like,
which could have easily happened, because you figure how many people are still there that worked on the first Psychonauts at this point.
And Psychonauts is just such a
probably.
it's such a delicate balance in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really explain to someone what Psychonauts needs to be. You just have to get it.
Yeah, and they've got it. Yeah, and what we have played so far has been good. It's also been delayed several times, which in this series case, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
To me, that shows that they're really kind of paying attention to the details to try to get that aesthetic exactly right. What I've seen so far, it seems like they're absolutely doing it. The release date for Psychonauts 2 right now is just 2020, which who freaking knows? It's Double Fine. It's been delayed like 3 times.
They were pretty confident at E3 that 2020 is going to happen. They just didn't know anything more specific.
Yeah.
So maybe we're waiting until Halloween or something, but like
that would be a good time as well.
I think it's happening.
Yep. Next up, Rainbow Six Quarantine. scheduled for Q4 of 2020. Yeah, all right, right. That. Yeah, the bastardized version of the franchise that has zombies. It's basically a co-op zombie shooter.
Yeah.
Which makes very little sense within the Rainbow Six universe.
Also, like, Capcom knew they had to bundle their version of this with Resident Evil 3 to get anybody to try it.
Exactly.
I wonder what the prevailing thought is on this.
It'll end up being like free to play or like $20 probably. That's my guess.
And I mean, I guess you're really leaning on the feel of the Rainbow Six mechanics, kind of making it worth playing because you want something that plays as well as Rainbow Six.
Which seems weird in a zombie shooter, but I mean, maybe that's its USP, its unique selling proposition, is that it has this tactical combat in a
I'm never going to fault them for trying something new.
No, definitely not.
Not that zombies are new, but like they've never tried it before, so who knows?
Would I rather have a more straightforward tactical Rainbow Six? Probably.
Yeah. But if it is successful, it makes you really wonder what the Division 3 will be about.
Right. Well, I'm wondering if what Ubisoft is trying to do is start differentiating its franchises.
Yeah.
And it sucks to me that Rainbow Six has ended up being the one that they're like, yeah, we're going to have a zombie shooter. Which IP does that match with? And somehow they chose Rainbow Six.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little disappointing to me, but I think it's smart on Ubisoft's part because all its shooters are just starting to blend together. It's for the layman, it's really hard to like look at a Ubisoft shooter and be like, that's this one or that's this one. They all look so much alike and play so much alike. So I understand why Ubisoft is doing it. I just wish that they had left Rainbow Six alone because it's probably, or at least it used to be, my favorite Ubisoft shooting franchise. So
yeah, I liked it, but it's been a long time since Vegas.
Absolutely. Yep. Next up, as we just talked about, the Resident Evil 3 remake. If it's anything like the Resident Evil 2 remake, I'm really freaking excited. As you said, Project Resistance, that's what it's called, I believe, was Capcom's zombie-based multiplayer shooter, has been rolled in as the multiplayer component for the remake. It seems like that was the plan all along now in hindsight. It wasn't clear at first, though, and they were doing separate betas for Project Resistance.
Yeah, I don't think, it doesn't seem like either this or Resident Evil 3 remake are really something you want to release standalone.
Yeah. I mean, RE2 was released standalone.
Yeah, but RE2 is a bigger game.
It is a bigger game, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, it's almost double the length of RE3. Yeah, so I guess you're right. That does make sense. But again, if they do as good a job on this remake as they did on RE2, this is going to be one of the best games of the year.
Yeah. Well, they were apparently working on this in parallel with 2 for a while.
Okay.
And there was a couple people said that early, like 2016, early on, they were thinking about putting 2 and 3 in the same package.
Oh.
And they ended up having to split it.
That was smart.
Yes. I think,
you'll make a lot more money that way.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason you can't sell 3 separately.
Yeah, for sure. Although you're right, it is pretty short. Like, I think if I remember correctly, I finished the original in like 9 hours or something.
Yeah, well, like the average completion time, I think something I looked up was like, it was like 7 hours.
Yeah.
And for Resident Evil 2, it's if you do both stories, it's more like 15.
Yep.
So I'm sure they'll add some new stuff and expand it out. They did that with 2 as well.
Yep.
And
looks amazing so far.
I'm sure the mechanics of how Nemesis chases you down will be more interesting,
Yeah.
in the same way that Mr. X was more interesting in the remake. So
yeah, for sure. They definitely nailed that part of it. Next up, Spelunky 2. One of those games that most people probably...
Quite a segue.
For some people, this will be the game of the year for 2020.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
Brent, who built SIFTD, and his wife love Spelunky. Like, they actually did like a Let's Play series for a while for SIFTD of Spelunky. I think we only ever posted like 1 or 2 episodes of it or whatever before they couldn't do it anymore. But Brent loves this game. His wife loves this game. I mean, it's hugely popular. Did you like the first Spelunky?
Like's a strong word.
Yeah, I bounced off of it, honestly.
I thought I understand why people like it so much, but like I just found it annoying. In terms of kind of the side-scrolling sort of Castlevania exploration roguelike thing, I am more of a La Mulana fan. I also don't particularly like the visual aesthetic. It just, I don't know. I just don't like the cartoony look that it uses. But I get it. Like it's like I've watched like speed runs and like various things. Like it's very impressive. It's just not my thing.
I'm impressed by the people who play Spelunky.
Yeah, that's more impressive to me than the game. Really, is what people have done with it.
Yeah,
and how good they are at things that they have not necessarily seen before when they get to like a randomly generated.
Yeah, how they
section.
can just react because they've been playing the game so much. Like
they just know what everything is, how it does, and what they need to. Like they recognize the situation instantly just through experience. That's very cool to see.
Yeah, I bounced off this game too. I didn't play it all that long. I did get re-inspired watching other people play it later on and went back to it, and I was like, oh, I can see that it's going to take a lot of work for me to get good at this game. So I never went back to it again after that. But a lot of people love Spelunky. It is coming to PS4 and PC right now this year in 2020, but there's no hard release date. This game we literally have one trailer for. So they put out the trailer. It says 2020 at the end of the trailer, and that's pretty much all we've had. So who knows? It has been quite a while since the first game, so it should be ready to release this year, but we'll see. But definitely has a chance to be one of the biggest indie games of the year, without a doubt. Next up, System Shock. Not System Shock 3. That is still floating out in the ether somewhere. Who knows what's going to happen with that?
Warren Spector's still baking that one.
Yep. This is the System Shock 1 remake. Fans had tried to do this for years. Finally, a real development studio is on it. It looks like it is actually coming this year. They've released a ton of media for this over the last 6 months. Looks pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think System Shock 1 is as good as 2.
No, definitely not.
But
it's nice. Still good though.
Still good. It would be nice to have a modern, functional version of this, because those early shooters didn't age too well.
Nope.
They're hard to play now.
They are. Even stuff like Doom and Wolfenstein is hard to play.
Yeah, and Doom and Wolfenstein I think are easier just because they're just action-based, blow things away things. Whereas something like System Shock or the first Marathon is harder because you have to be immersed in the world and sort of recognize what you're looking at and interact with things. And sometimes you're just I didn't even realize that was a button. The resolution change from then to now is astounding. So kind of going back and doing something like this for the best of that era and kind of making them playable today to kind of not just to introduce new people to them, but to preserve them in a more playable state, I think is a good thing.
Yep, absolutely. The thing for me about the first System Shock that made it successful was its atmosphere. And I don't suspect that anything like that's going to be compromised for this remake.
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, I think everything System Shock 1 does well, System Shock 2 does better.
Oh yeah.
But
yep.
Having them together is playing them back to back is a real treat.
I think some people will play this though and be like, I don't know what the big deal is.
Maybe. I mean, the other thing you have to remember if you've never played System Shock, and if you do play this, not just players, but an entire generation of developers have been influenced by this.
Oh,
game.
yeah.
One of the reasons you might play this and be like, I don't see what the big deal is, because you've been playing games that have been influenced by System Shock for 20-some years.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Really influential.
It's very hard to find a large, a prominent game developer today that didn't love System Shock when they were younger.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, this is sort of there's a Citizen Kane element here where you're I don't understand what the big deal with Citizen Kane was.
That's a good analogy.
Citizen Kane invented every camera move
modern
you see. You see how it dissolved between no one had ever done that before. Yeah. And now you're just you see it in every soap opera.
People don't get it. Yeah.
It's just, and that's but that's also it's a valid response because you're so immersed in the results of this seminal work that you can't even see it anymore.
Yeah.
And but System Shock is a little bit like that.
Yep, absolutely. Next up, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
Speaking of
longest title ever.
Speaking of classic, immersive games made by people who had relations to System Shock, and it's from the same family. Definitely.
It's cut from the same cloth, absolutely. And I think a lot of the people who like the Bloodlines franchise are the same people who liked System Shock back in the day. They definitely have a very similar aesthetic. I would even argue that parts of this reminds me a little bit of Disco Elysium. Bloodlines, the franchise does. It's a lot of narration, a lot of plot, a lot of prose.
I would say the closest analogy I would make would be, the first one is kind of like a mix of BioShock and New Vegas.
Yeah.
There's action, there's a shooting element to it, but it's also you can play it with barely ever having combat. and the dialogue is king, and the character work and kind of how you play your character determines what's going to happen to you more than anything else, in a way that you don't see much in games. Like Dying Light 2 makes me think of the original Bloodlines a little bit. It's like, oh, are you really going to craft this thing the way, like, because that was the thing about Bloodlines, was like, that thing was crafted from start to finish to be reactive to your character.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
how they behaved and what they did. And that's a lot of work.
Yep.
But if you want to make a game like that and make it sing, you have to do that. Now, this is being made by a lot of the same people that made the original. And every time you talk to them, and I did see them briefly at E3, like they were like, oh, yeah, we're doing. It's like we were ready for kind of what it meant to try to follow this game up. So I have a lot of high hope for this one.
I'm a little nervous though, because the first game when it came out was bug riddled.
Even to this day, the only way to play the original game is to use a bunch of fan patches.
Right.
And that partly is not their fault, because they were not given the money to continue supporting it, because that was also just not a thing that really happened much.
No, it didn't. That wasn't a thing back then. Yeah.
There was a day.
Well, there was a day when you released your game.
It was broken. It was broken.
That was it. Yeah, you didn't go back and work on it.
It was only the big thing. I mean, things like with Myth 2, where if you uninstalled the game, it deleted your Windows drive.
Right.
Like, that got a patch. But otherwise, you were kind of stuck.
Yeah. So that is supposed to come out in late 2020.
Wouldn't shock me to see that slip to next year.
Me either, and I would almost welcome a delay for this game.
Yeah, get this thing right.
Yeah, I don't want to see
whatever it takes.
I don't want to see what happened with the first game happen with this one, where eventually they got it to a good place, and the people who played it then were like, "This is one of the best games I ever played," and then they're stuck trying to explain to people who played it when it came out why their opinions differ so much from the launch folks. So get this thing right out of the gate. Don't be patching it to fix it after release. Be working on it to update it and make it better, not fix problems. And I think this franchise might have the ability to kind of take off and become one of those next big action RPG franchises. But they got to do it right. So we'll see. I hope that they do. The premise, the concept of the game is solid. People still love vampires. I don't think they're ever going to get sick of vampires. Very well written. Branching story paths, that's a big part of the game. So I think it has a big opportunity, but I think they need to make sure it's done before they send it out there. Next up, Wasteland 3. Coming May 19th for all platforms, minus Switch. I know that is a common refrain here in our 2020 preview. That's just the way it is. Until, as Matt said earlier, Nintendo gets that more powerful Switch out there that can start running some of this stuff. Wasteland 3, when was Wasteland 2 released?
2014, 2015.
So it hasn't been that long since the last one.
No, this has been a pretty good turnaround.
Yeah,
for a back-to-back not Kickstarter. This one is Fig, but back-to-back crowdfunded games.
Yep. And this one looks better.
Yes.
It looks like it looks like they have more money this time.
Yeah, I think
maybe part of it is that they made a lot of money off the last one, and they were able to put that forward into this game along with the crowdfunding money.
And they probably learned a lot.
Yeah.
On the second one.
Yeah, ways to do things faster, way to do things cheaper.
They're not reinventing the wheel on this one. They're just sort of.
They got the engine.
Yeah, they're doing what they did before, but better.
Yep. Did you like Wasteland 2?
I did. Wasteland 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. I must have probably spent 1,000+ hours playing that on the Apple IIe.
Yep.
So I was very happy to back.
Yeah, much shorter
Wasteland
gap
2.
between 2 and 3 than 1 and 2.
Yes, thankfully. I really liked it. I thought 2 was really good. It obviously didn't hook me in for 1,000 hours like the original did, but I was also not 10.
Yeah.
It did what I required it to do. It felt like sort of a follow-up to Wasteland that never happened in the way that Fallout was, because that's what they made when they couldn't make Wasteland 2 because EA wouldn't let them do it.
Yep.
And it was interesting to see how they kind of made it different from Fallout. This is a more serious tone game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's more of there's a militaristic element to it. It's not as fluffy, and I think it's a nice contrast. And this looks cool just because you don't see snow in the post-apocalyptic genre much.
No, why is that?
I don't know. I mean, part of it is probably because it's expensive to shoot in.
Oh, right.
But like it's, I mean, you see snow, like frozen wastelands, more in like apocalyptic literature.
Yeah.
You don't see it in films much because snow just adds another variable, and like Snowpiercer is one of the few I can think of, and that mostly takes place on a train.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is I love it when these games, including Fallout, I love it when they go someplace we've never been before and to see like what has happened to this place in the wake of the end of civilization.
Yep.
So I think this is a cool direction to take it. I am also a backer on Fig of this, so full disclosure, but like I'm probably still just gonna.
I think we guessed that already.
Probably still gonna just download it on Game Pass. I mean,
probably. Why not? Next up, Watch Dogs Legion, supposed to come March 6th. Mm-hmm. As you guys know, the big hook for this Watch Dogs is literally being able to play as anyone, and allegedly, each one of those characters having an actual path to follow and progression to follow and a real life and real activities that they go on about their way doing every day. There was a big focus on showing the one elderly woman that you could play as. So there's definitely a wide selection of playable NPCs in the game. Game was delayed, but not by much.
But that's okay because it's just becoming more relevant as time goes on.
Yes, it sadly is.
I think it will make the March date, though, because I don't think this is slipping past fiscal.
Yeah, I think they have to get this out. I mean, it may slip like a week. It's not coming out after March 31st. It's going to come out.
Right, which I admit makes me a little hesitant to put it on my fantasy draft because I feel like you might get a gotta come out hell or high water thing. But
you think the game may not be good,
right.
Is what you're saying. Okay.
But this was also delayed specifically because of UB reacting to Breakpoint's shaky launch status.
Yep.
So hopefully that has all come together properly and it'll be a solid game.
It would be really bad if Ubisoft put out 2 unfinished games
would be,
in a row.
I don't know if you saw, but even in the holiday sale stuff over the break, like you get Breakpoint for like $19.
I know.
Like that was.
I'll be honest with you. When I was shopping over the holidays for all my relatives and my nieces and nephews, I was just shocked in general at how cheap games were.
Yeah.
Big budget games that came out 3 months earlier, $19.99, $24.99, lots of them. It made it good for buying gifts, but I was like, dang.
Sales are front-loaded these days.
Yeah, I'm like, this doesn't look good, man. Some of these games were huge games, and now I'm like, there was one I bought for like $10 or something. I was just like, what? Like, what is happening with pricing? The other danger, too, with Watch Dogs is it's way more intricate than Breakpoint. I mean, as far as all the systems that have to work together, the probability of there being bad bugs is way higher in this game.
It's pretty high, but I will say they've been working on this game a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's been,
long time.
4.5, 5 years, I guess.
It's been long, at least 5 years. A little more than that, maybe. And it was done, and it went to a different team, I think specifically because
Vincent is saying Watch Dogs is delayed out of fiscal.
Is it?
Yep.
When did that happen?
That's what they're saying in chat. I don't know.
I mean, whatever it takes to get the thing to work properly, I guess.
Yep, let's see. Yep, now it's Q4 2020.
Q4, wow.
When did that happen?
I missed that.
I completely missed that. What the heck? I'm looking on the site right now.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out.
How's it for next-gen consoles?
Yeah, so that's Q4 now. Now there's a chance that it doesn't come out this year. Although that's a nice cushion.
Yeah.
I mean, they just gave him an extra, 10 months, basically, to work on the game. So maybe, I don't know, man. I don't know if I would ever pick a Ubisoft game that's supposed to come in Q4 for a fantasy draft again. I just don't know. It's just too risky. So, yeah, I will see this at E3 again.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. These last couple games are just, I kind of put them in here just to discuss them. Beyond Good and Evil 2. What percentage chance do you think that this game comes out in 2020?
5%.
Yeah, I just first of all, Ubisoft already kind of went through.
If Legion was in this bad a shape,
right,
there's no way Beyond Good and Evil
is close
to ready.
Yeah, there's no way it'll come out this year, which is a shame. There's been so much work put into this game already, but it doesn't appear to be anywhere close to releasing. I don't know.
I mean, I'm still excited about it, but
No, for sure. I'm really excited about it. But, man, when are we going to play this thing? I mean, now it's really looking like it's going to be a next-gen game.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Like, there's a lot of ambitious stuff in this thing.
Yep. And then the last kind of hopeful third-party game, Elden Ring. It's the
From Software.
George R.R. Martin. I guess he was ultimately just a consultant on the game.
Yeah, I mean, the world was created by him.
Yeah.
More or less, yeah.
He wrote a couple paragraphs. And
Apparently he turned in a fairly decent, like, kind of world Bible.
Oh, he
for it.
did?
So, but, it's not like he's playing the game and giving feedback. He's just like, here's what the world is. He's doing kind of what Ari Salvatore did for Kingdoms of Amalur.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Writes a treatment.
Kind of lays down what the world is and how everything works, and then
Have fun.
The developers sort of go nuts in it.
Yeah. What do you think was the chances we see this game this year?
Not tops.
No. I'd give it maybe like a 1% chance.
Yeah.
I mean, all we've got is this like pre-rendered cinematic for the game.
Yeah, there's very little
And we had to wait
to
a long
indicate.
time for that. So, yeah.
Sekiro just came out less than a year ago.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's time yet. We might get a remaster or something here and there.
That's possible.
Maybe Sony finally bites the bullet and remasters Bloodborne for PS5.
Or Demon Souls.
Dream big. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see demons. I mean, but weirder things have happened. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long shot at this point. But we'll see.
I'd love to see a Bloodborne updated to work on, like, with PS5's hardware tricks.
Yeah.
Just because I think the one downside of Bloodborne is I think the PS4 still wasn't quite there to
It's
do
a little
justice
muddy
to it.
and murky.
A little muddy.
Yeah.
A little heavy on the chromatic aberration.
Yeah.
I think you could clean that up a little bit and make it look really good.
Agreed.
And then that would be a nice way to sort of segue into being like, oh, by the way, we finally decided to make another one.
Yep.
So,
You think we'll see that this year, Bloodborne 2?
no.
No.
I don't think we'll ever see Bloodborne. I don't think Bloodborne 2 will ever happen.
Really? That actually
Much as I would like
transitions
it.
perfectly into PlayStation for 2020. I didn't actually have Bloodborne 2 on the list for PlayStation because I just didn't think it was going to happen, and you agree.
Yeah.
Why do you
Definitely.
think it'll never happen?
Because I think if it didn't happen by now, I think it's not going to happen. Like, I don't think whatever it sold. I don't remember if there were any numbers ever released for it, but I
think it's like 4 or 5.
I think it was like about average for a Souls game kind of thing. But like, I think Sony just sort of categorizes like didn't sell well enough for us to continue this because we want them to sell 10 million, not 4 million kind of thing. And maybe that attitude can change over time. Like clearly that result didn't like freak them out about how Days Gone sold, which I think did probably sell better than Bloodborne. But
I mean, they're both new IPs. You can only
Yeah.
expect so much from a new IP, you know? Like,
well, especially because Bloodborne is like a niche of a new IP.
Right.
It's like it's not for everyone.
yeah.
So it's not impossible, but I just feel like Sony has other things to do and other things. They'd rather do their stuff like that in house.
Yeah, bigger fish to fry, and yeah, absolutely. So let's start going through some of the PlayStation stuff for 2020. Ghost of Tsushima currently scheduled for Q3 right now, although that I don't scheduled may not be the right word to use. Roughly, that's what we're guesstimating.
Tentatively slated.
Yeah. Do you think that's legit, or do you think it's just going to come out with PlayStation 5?
Could go either way. I don't
Yeah.
really know.
I think it's all signs are pointing to released with PlayStation 5.
Maybe. I don't know. I just want it.
I think a lot of people
I don't care. I don't care when it comes out.
I do
Just give
fear
it to
that
me.
this might turn into another Bloodborne, Days Gone type situation where it doesn't hit that 10 million, 15 million mark,
I think it will either be that or it will be a runaway hit.
or it'll explode.
I think it's got potential to be Sucker Punch's breakout.
That would be great. I mean, Sucker Punches deserved that a long time before now.
Because look, to be honest, I think all you have to do is show some of these visuals on an NFL ad, and you're going to get people's like, "What is that? How
For
do
sure.
I play it?"
It's
Like,
gorgeous, yeah.
It's like the opposite of Death Stranding.
You're right, it is. It's kind of the antithesis of Death Stranding. Yeah, all gameplay driven.
Like, look at all the gold and the red and the green
and the
it's
colors,
beautiful.
Yeah. It is beautiful. So anyway, roughly Q3 of this year. I wouldn't hold my breath for that, though.
Yeah, I mean, what's Q3 up to like end of September?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it feels like a pretty good place for it traditionally, like
Yeah.
an August September game. especially if Sony has something else big planned for later in the Q4.
And maybe you do release it before PlayStation 5, so the big reviews get out there, it gets really big scores, and then it's enhanced on PlayStation 5, and you get that second round of love for it.
Yeah.
That could work.
Sure. And also because if you do that, in addition, I mean, Spider-Man is a cool demo for that kind of thing, but it's a little old now.
Yeah.
And at that point, they might want to be focusing on Spider-Man 2. This would be a great thing to be able to just straight up show, here's what it looks like on your PS4, here's what it'll look like if you play it on PS5.
Yeah.
You
think they're going to do that stuff?
I think they might.
Yeah.
I
think
think
their own comparison videos and be like, look.
Because I think that's sort of until they can kind of get something together comparable to Game Pass, I think that's their counter move to that is like, your library still works.
Yeah.
And it looks better. And it plays better. And this is what you get.
It'll be interesting to see how they message that to try to get it out to
be really interesting.
a casual audience.
Because it's not a thing anyone's ever focused on before. But I think the ability to carry your stuff forward is a selling point you have to sell to people now because of how big digital got this generation.
Yeah.
You have to reassure people not only that they're not going to lose what they already bought, but what they've already bought is going to be even better now.
Yeah. It's true.
I don't know if I believe that rumor about how it's going to be backwards compatible with PS1, 2, 3, 4. I would be shocked if it's backwards compatible with PS3 because the core processor is absurdly hard to emulate. And like the others maybe, but like the core processor, like I don't know.
I don't know how you do it.
There's an emulator now that you can run on PC. It's like kind of works mostly, but like the idea that Sony put that much effort into doing that when they could just put PS3 games on PS Now doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. Next up, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Hard release date of March 3rd. March is really just
packed.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome month. Maybe the best March ever. It does appear that this game is being also developed for PC. So there's a demo that's out there right now. They've dug into the source code, and it appears that there's a PC version coming.
That's not super shocking.
Not shocking at all. I'm sure it's going to be exclusive to PlayStation for
like a year.
A year, probably.
Probably until the next installment.
Yeah, until the next episode comes out, which might be like 4 years later. I mean, it really could be one of those situations where you don't get the next one for like 5 or 6 years.
I'm really interested to see how this game is carried through kind of the carrying your library forward thing, because it's bizarre to me that this multi-episode thing is about to start in the last year of the PS4.
The whole thing makes no sense.
Like, why you wouldn't just? I mean, I know the demand is there, but like, and you want to sell this thing big money, big numbers on the established install base of the PS4. But the fact that you're probably not going to be able to play the whole thing on PS4, in the end, is weird.
It is weird. Absolutely. I mean, I think that means that you are going to be able to play the whole thing on PS4. I think they're going to figure out some way to make it work. It's hard to tell somebody, hey, buy this console if you want to play Final Fantasy VII.
Also, to be fair, like, I feel like you don't need to keep improving the engine and the visuals on this thing as you move forward. You just have to make more content.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of content.
I hope they know that, because I think you need to get this thing out in a really regular manner. Certainly more regular than Kentucky Route Zero.
Well, you wonder, too, if it comes out and it's not very good,
right?
And maybe it gets hammered by critics, do we never see the second part?
That would be not very nice.
It would not be nice. I mean, that's why I think you've got to assume that they have thought about this stuff.
You can't have it. I mean, Kentucky Route Zero is on my mind because the final episode of that came out today.
It did?
There was a countdown going down to noon Eastern yesterday.
Really?
And I didn't look because I just came straight here.
Yeah.
But like, it sounded like
just out of nowhere.
Either that or they were going to put like a release date up, because it's supposed to come out at the same time as the TV edition, which is the console version.
Yeah.
And today is 7 years to the day of the release of the first episode of that.
Wow.
I have been waiting a long damn time.
Yes, everyone
has.
That game. Yeah. It's been like an enigma.
Yeah.
In the industry.
If that does come out, if that episode did come out, or it'll be whenever it comes out, don't pass it up, because that game is crazy.
It is.
It's
awesome.
One of the few examples of magical realism being done correctly in video games.
Yep. Absolutely.
You don't get that much.
Yep. So again, Final Fantasy VII Remake, March 3rd, just less than 2 months to go for that. The Last of Us Part 2, coming out right now, is scheduled for May 29th.
Pretty much the 800-pound gorilla of Sony's lineup.
Yep.
for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, coming May 29th, so not much longer to wait for this one either. Do you suspect another delay?
No.
Because they delayed it and then came back and said, okay, we're going to delay it one more month. Mm-hmm. So I would assume that they're golden. They're good for May 29th.
I think so.
After you delay it and you only delay it a month, that means that you are delaying it for a very specific thing that you're very confident you can get fixed in that amount of time. So I think it's rock solid May 29th. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that game as well for PlayStation 5. But yeah, I think you're either in or you're out on this game already. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything we can say to change your mind one way or the other at this point.
No, probably not.
Next up, Neo 2, coming March 13th. Dude, March is huge. It is just rock solid. What a month it's going to be. I played the demo of this, got spanked, and never went back.
It's hard.
One of the hardest games I've ever played. The original's really hard, too. And it seems like the sequel's even more challenging. So if you're the type
Neo
of person...
is actually as hard as people think Dark Souls is.
That's a good way to put it, actually. That's actually a really good way to put it. Yeah, so if you're a Souls player and you're like, oh, these games are too easy, give Neo a try. I'd love to hear your take on that.
It's also really big.
It's gigantic. Yeah, it takes forever to finish.
It's Team Ninja, and it reminds me of the first Ninja Gaiden, where you on Xbox, where you played it and it just kept going.
It just kept going and going. Like, people don't make games like this now, but Itagaki does. So game's looking awesome. Challenging, not for the faint of heart, not for everyone.
Not for wimps, people.
That's for sure. But it'll be there for you on March 13th. Next up, Godfall, the first PlayStation 5 game ever shown. Was shown at the Game Awards. It's supposed to be coming for launch of the PlayStation 5 this year. Just shown for the first time less than a month ago, a few weeks ago. What do you think are the chances that this game's actually done for the PlayStation 5 launch?
Oh, 90%.
Yeah.
I don't think you do that.
Yeah, it's really hard to make an announcement like that and then not deliver, because that's not just your neck on the line. That's Sony's neck on the line.
I think the only reason we haven't seen it until recently is this is the first time Sony agreed to start showing PS5 stuff.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about this game before. I'm a little disappointed in how it looks. You weren't so much.
I think it looks fine. I don't expect a third-party game, let alone a Gearbox game, to really be the thing that sells me on new hardware power. I feel like Sony's in-house stuff will look substantially better than this. But it's fine. I mean, it's a launch game. It looks about on par with kind of the graphical jump I would expect from things, including adding in ray tracing and the lighting and stuff looks good. But I just don't know what it is.
Do you think that's a big enough jump to get people to spend $400 or $500 on a console?
Well, we'll see what Sony shows.
Yeah,
this is an also-ran.
I know, but it's just weird that it was the first thing shown to me. It was.
Yeah, most people will probably never know.
They won't even remember it, or they don't even know it exists yet.
No.
Just people like us, the folks who watch GameFace. Next up, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Yakuza 7 in Japan. It's getting a subtitle here. It is
the subtitle of its actual title.
Yeah,
is interesting.
Yeah, it's a drastic change from past Yakuza games. It's an RPG, which is strange. It's usually been an open world action adventure in the past.
Well, I mean, you had you had 6 of them plus a couple of spin-offs. So I mean, and they've said in interviews, it's we just thought it was time to change it up. We've been making the same game for.
I don't blame them at all.
Years.
I would want to do the same thing.
And, this is an interesting way to go with it, especially because it started as an April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
But I'm up for it. If I want to play an action-based Yakuza game, I have 6 others.
Yeah, there's plenty of them.
I can play. And at this point, if these guys haven't earned my trust, who has?
Yeah, that's true. Right now, it only has a 2020 release date. It's out in Japan already. Mm-hmm. So my guess is it probably will make it before the end of the year.
Depending on how fast they can localize, yeah.
Which is
pretty good now.
They are, but that's a huge improvement over past Yakuza games where you may never see them in the West.
Yeah, and now next month, I think we finally the last remaster drops in the U.S.
And
5.
The cycle is complete.
And because they did that thing where you could order the collection, and they put out 3, I think was it TGS? And they went up and you could get it at TGS or Gamescom.
I don't remember.
It was around there where you'd buy it and you got Yakuza 3 that day, and then Yakuza 4 went up in I think October, November, and then Yakuza 5 goes up next month, and then that's all the Yakuza 0 through 7, 0 through 6, all on PS4. Whole series.
Yep.
If you want to spend a year and a half of your life
just playing the action adventure games, there are plenty there for you. Next up, a game that you mentioned earlier, Iron Man VR. I did not include this in the VR section because it is a PlayStation VR exclusive right now. It's only come into PlayStation VR. It does look really good. First person flying around as Iron Man. I probably will never be able to play it. I'll just puke all over myself probably. It's coming February 28th, so not long to wait. And it really is kind of the only big PlayStation VR exclusive this year. That has really cooled off PlayStation VR software here over the last 4 or 5 months. We're assuming PlayStation VR 2 will be announced soon, shown soon.
Yeah,
so,
they said there's something.
Oh, I know that there's PlayStation VR 2 is coming.
And that VR,
I know for a fact.
And the old one can move forward as well. So.
And they'll drop the price on that probably. They have already, but they'll probably get that down to like $150.
I mean, I would probably be in the market for a PSVR 2 at some point, just because one of the reasons I don't use the PSVR as much as I might normally do is because I have the old one, the launch one, so I can't do HDR through that box.
Right.
So if I want HDR,
that weird box that they give you.
I have to unplug and replug.
Interesting.
Everything. So the fact that there's a barrier of physical entry to it, where I have to rehook the PSVR to play VR.
Yeah.
Which by the time I would have done that, I don't really want to play.
You don't
VR
want to play anymore. You've thought about it long enough. You're like, not really.
Yeah. You have to cater to my impulses.
Yeah,
really.
I think everyone works that way. It's like if it's not there when I want it, I need it, I have the time for it. That's your fault, and I'm outie. I'm probably not coming back. Like, that's kind of how society is now. It's like, because, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's like every moment of your day is so timed, and then there's something that's happening next that you have to do, or you have to go somewhere. It's like, you can play games when you find the time to do it, or you can do anything just when you find the time to do it, and if something isn't there in that moment, see ya. Like, that's just the way it is. So, we'll see. But, I have a feeling that most of the dwindling of PlayStation VR stuff is the impending announcement of PlayStation VR 2. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if Iron Man VR works fine on PlayStation VR 2 and it runs better and it looks better and it won't make me puke.
Well, not go that far.
Yeah, I know. I am really bad with VR. Like, I'm not even, like, borderline. Like, I'm bad. Like, I'm the person that, like, they should be designing VR games for, because when I'm okay with it, everyone will be okay with it. That seems to be the way it is. So, next up, Dreams, finally. I mean, we've known about Dreams since, like, the launch of the PlayStation 4.
Long time.
Finally, in its swan song year, it's coming out on February 14th on Valentine's Day. So go out and maybe make your Valentine a Valentine in Dreams.
Or a lovely English breakfast, judging by that thing that went up this week.
I have a feeling my wife would appreciate the breakfast far more than the greeting card inside Dreams. I've been really impressed with what's been coming out of the demo for this. I doubt I'll ever have enough time to actually get good at it, but just based upon what people have created already, I know when I boot that thing up on Valentine's Day, there's going to be tons of great stuff to experience without me having to do anything. So, very smart for them to get this in the hands of creators way before it released to retail. So you have that huge wealth of content just sitting there waiting on launch day. I have a feeling that that's a lesson that they learned from Little Big Planet across the years that they've applied to this new IP, and rightly so. That's if you're going to make a game that is mostly a tool to make games with, you better have good examples there on day one of what people can achieve.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not going to care about achieving it. So
Wipe out.
I think they handled it perfectly, honestly, the way they handled Dreams.
It's been very smart.
Yep. And hopefully the end product ends up reflecting that. Next up, Predator Hunting Grounds. Just tacking this on at the end here. I mean, we're already at the end of games for PlayStation in 2020, by the way. Its list wasn't much longer than Xbox, to be honest. But Predator Hunting Grounds, a co-op shooter set in the Predator universe. We still care about Predator. Does anyone else still care about Predator?
Despite the best efforts of all the sequels, I think there are still some people who care about Predator.
There are. That's surprising to me, because I'm only hanging on by, like, my fingernails at this point.
But this is very much of a throwback to kind of the original idea.
Yeah.
So that helps. If you really want to sell this, let people play as Olivia Munn.
You're right.
There's your DLC.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not. You're not kidding. Like, that actually would work. They would sell some of that DLC. I'm surprised she's not in the game. I mean, she's kind of a part of our lexicon.
Yeah, well, that's a license you'd have to pay for. So.
I mean, how much would they have to pay Olivia Munn for her to be in a game?
I don't know.
Like, not that much.
No, but
I mean, she might even just do it, like, sign off on it, because she's from kind of the gaming industry.
if you're good at something, never do it for free.
Yeah, I've heard people say that, but I don't
say that.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that, though. I think there's a time and a place to help people out, although I doubt she would find it
Sony
that
doesn't
way.
need help.
Yeah,
they can pay.
Nobody wants to help Sony out. That's for sure. And then finally, PlayStation 5. Obviously, Sony's biggest release of the year. We don't know the exact day yet, but it's coming. Q4, my guess is the first 2 weeks of November or the last week of October. That 3-week window, I think, probably is going to be ideal.
You think Xbox is first?
I think there's going to be... I think we'll know at E3 who's going to be first. And
I hope so.
And I think Microsoft will have to go first because I think it depends on whose presser is first. And if Microsoft's press conference is first, Sony's just going to announce a date that's a week ahead. Like, I think the jockeying for times at this year's E3 is, like, huge. Because, I mean, we saw what happened last time with the pricing. Microsoft goes out, says $500. Sony's like, oh, well, we can just change ours to who knows what their original price was. But no matter what, they're going to change it to $400 the next day for their press conference.
And certainly they made the decision on their DRM strategy overnight.
Yep, exactly. So it's a huge advantage to go first, and I think that's going to ultimately determine like release dates, who ends up going first, who doesn't at the end of the year. I think it has to be $400 or less. I just think for mass market penetration, a console needs to be $400.
I think these things are both $500.
I agree. I think the kit is worth way more than $500. It's going to be about how much loss are they willing to take. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. I was reading an article on SIFTD yesterday where they were talking about the PlayStation 2 in Europe and how it flopped out of the gate and how they were forced to start marketing it as a DVD player instead of a gaming console, and that's ultimately what got them up and out of it. But it was very interesting kind of learning about the inner workings of PlayStation and how Sony works, and I highly recommend going and finding that article on SIFTD whenever the show's over. But it's very interesting to see how PlayStation works and how nimble it is and how reactive it is to competition and how cutthroat it is. Like, the thing about that article, and even the guy that they interviewed mentioned it, is how things have changed and how back when Sony launched the PS2 and it was not doing great out of the gate, it was below expectations in all Western territories, it was interesting to see how they jumped to it and were like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to change things and mix things up and change our marketing plan and who we're marketing to, and it worked and it took off. But the thing that was most striking was how much they hated Xbox. In that interview, they just talked over and over about how every meeting they're like, we just need to stomp them. We need to put them in the dirt immediately so that they don't want to release another console, because they knew Microsoft had the wherewithal to compete with them. And they're like,
good job.
They do have the money. They do have the resources to stomp us. So we need to stomp them as quickly as possible. And then the whole thing was about how that's all changed now. And how they don't really look at Microsoft anymore as like this evil company that's a competitor. They look at it like, if they succeed, we succeed, all boats rise with the rising tide. So it's been interesting to kind of see that change of focus over the last 10 or 15 years inside PlayStation, inside Sony. So highly recommended you go back and read that article. It's really, really good. So yeah, PlayStation 5, I'm going to predict $400. I agree. Like, they literally could sell these platforms for $700 or $800, and they might still lose money at that. I just don't think you can sell it at $500 and be successful. I just think both these guys are going to have to take major losses until the production costs come down. $600 to me is completely off the board. $500.
Sony will never sell anything for $600.
Again, I agree. But I just think that price is just completely out of the realm of possibilities. Pactor, he seems to think there's going to be 2 versions, and one might be like $800. The other will be like $400 or $500.
I think that might be what we get from Microsoft.
I think so too. But you do have to. I just feel like you have to have one box at $400. And I get it. Like they haven't dropped the price. Pactor says that they're doing that because they're just bundling in games now instead of dropping the price, which kind of makes it like it's price drop. But I just think anything over $400 is a really hard sell, particularly if we go to war and the economy starts to tank next year. I don't know, man. That would necessitate a big price drop right away. Like if you went $500 and then the economy starts tanking, which is going to happen. I mean, the economy is cyclical. It's like it's just the way it is. Like,
well, the signs are there for that to happen earlier next year. So we'll see. I still think 500 is about as low as they can go without driving themselves into a very precarious situation. But you might be right. They might be willing to
just bite the bullet.
Just for the sake of penetration.
Because these consoles have to be this expensive. They have to be. Because if they're not going to have the impact that, in all honesty, the industry needs them to have. Not just Sony and Microsoft.
And the only other solution
we need them to have an impact so that people care about games, so that they come and watch us and are willing to support us.
And the only other solution to that is for them to wait.
Yeah. And you can't do that, really. So, yeah, I mean, waiting for the cost to drop of production. So I think Sony and Microsoft are just going to have to bite the bullet, and I think they're both going to come in at $400. At least one of the boxes will be $400.
I think they'll both be $500.
Wow.
Microsoft has the wherewithal to make it $400 if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
And of the two, I would say that might be possible in the sense that Microsoft seems way more interested in getting you into the ecosystem than selling you hardware.
Yeah.
That would be a very interesting scenario if they go 400 and 800 or something, and Sony can't do that, and Sony has to be 500, and like you have a reversal of this generation. And
that would be really interesting.
And this time you don't even have the excuse of we have this stupid extra camera thing in here that costs an extra $100.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's going to be the question: will Microsoft be aggressive enough to say 400? And if they do, by the next night, will Sony be able to clear with the home office?
Right. Back in Japan,
can we go
do
400?
This? Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun and exciting. I'm really jacked up for it. So there you go. That's PlayStation in 2020. Not a lot of software. I mean, I'm really hoping that Sony has a good 8 to 10 games that it's going to show at E3 for PlayStation 5.
I don't think we know hardly anything about the second half of the year.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, if you look at this, there is nothing for the second half of the year. It stops.
And there's a lot of concern about, or not concern, but a lot of chatter about how Spider-Man 2 is coming sooner than we think.
Yeah.
That would be a crazy strong launch window.
I mean,
title.
the timing kind of is working out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to reinvent that wheel. You just have to make another game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And run it in 4K.
Yeah.
Natively. Next up, Matt and I are going to gaze into our crystal ball, and we're going to make 3 predictions for 2020. 3 apiece, so 6 total predictions. It was fun doing this year because there's so many possibilities with the new platforms and all the games and wondering what games might come out. I really thought for a while about this one to come up with my 3 predictions. Matt, what was your first prediction?
And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but we will see Metroid Prime 4 this year, but we will not get it this year.
So you're saying they'll show it at E3. Will we get gameplay at E3?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we'll get gameplay. And if not gameplay at E3, then we'll get gameplay in a direct later in the year.
Okay.
But my caveat to this is that we will get something Metroid related this year, I think.
So no Prime 4 this year.
No Prime 4, but we will at least I would think the Prime Trilogy remaster. And I think there's an outside chance we get another Mercury Steam Metroid.
For sure.
Because it's the right amount of time since the Metroid 2 remake.
And Mercury, they're not doing anything.
They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And like if you had to delay and restart the Metroid Prime project, having them pump out like a really solid 2D Metroid game on the Switch this year is pretty much the best way to make me forgive you for that.
I also feel like a new...
Hell, I kind of want that more.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I kind of feel like a 2D Metroid might outsell Metroid Prime 4.
Not impossible.
Like a brand new, good 2D Metroid.
Like so, I think there's a fairly strong possibility of that.
Okay.
And so while it sounds at first that I'm saying it's going to be a bad thing this year, what I'm saying is actually, even though that happens, there's going to be a good thing in there.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know what else Mercury Steam could be doing.
It's done nothing.
And I cannot imagine that Nintendo saw that game and wasn't like, you need to do more of these for us. Because
it was great.
Samus Returns worked out really well.
It did a good job. My first prediction for 2020, I already told you guys, and that was my bonus prediction, that both consoles will be $400. My other prediction is that both new consoles will sell out. So I think the big question everyone's going to ask is, and people ask this on Pactor's predictions episode, which is live right now on SIFTD and on our Patreon. It went up this morning. A lot of people asked him which console is going to sell the most, and I think everyone's going to wonder that all year long. Which one's going to win? And my prediction is there is no winner. That both of them sell everything that they can make, and the winner is determined by default by which can produce the most units. Mm-hmm. So one will end up having an extra 200 to 500,000 in sales, but it's only going to be because they managed to manufacture more. And I would say that I'm leaning towards Microsoft being able to manufacture more. So I guess I would say I'm shading towards that when 2020 is over, Microsoft will have sold slightly more consoles than Sony, but I don't think that that's any indication of which platform ultimately is going to win the generation, if that makes sense.
And what if they're 500?
If they're 500, all bets are off. Then I wonder if they would both sell out all their stock. And I would probably argue that PlayStation would be more likely to sell all its stock because of the install base of PlayStation 4 and customers just being like, I like my PS4, I want a PS5. Mm-hmm. But I think ultimately there's going to be no winner between PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X when 2020 is over. I think by the end of 2021, that's when we'll start to realize who's going to be the winner. And that's not a crazy bold prediction. I mean, the majority of consoles do end up selling pretty much all their stock. Wii U didn't. But most consoles do end up selling whatever they can make their first quarter. And then after that, that's whenever the rubber hits the road, and it's all about whether people actually want the console or not. It's not just your fans just impulse buying it. So it is going to be interesting to watch, but I do think that after 2020, we won't have any more clarity on which of those two consoles is going to end up reigning supreme. Mm-hmm. All right, what's your second prediction for 2020?
My second prediction is that Cyberpunk 2077 slips to summer.
It's going to be delayed again.
It's never been delayed.
Yeah, I guess we didn't have a release date.
Yeah, it's only gotten this one release date.
Right.
But I have a weird suspicion that I can't really back up with anything concrete, but I feel like this thing's slipping closer to E3.
I know where your feeling's coming from. You know how ambitious this game is.
Yeah.
And even I at times struggle to believe that the game is going to do everything that CD Projekt Red claims it's going to do. And so I think, at least for me, I have that kind of in the back of my mind, which always leads me to believe, well, they probably should take a long time to make it, which they have already. When there are that many T's to cross and I's to dot, it's very easy for, at the end of the project, for you to be like, oh crap, there's like 50,000 more T's than I thought that there was going to be. Mm-hmm. I could totally see that happening. I don't think it'll be delayed out of the year, though.
No.
I think it'll be released this year. It kind of has to be.
I think it'll be released before Q3.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I feel like it's gonna end up releasing like the week of or week after E3.
That would be crazy. That would be a terrible time for them to release that game.
Yeah, people would be very upset about that. But
because how are you supposed to play? Like, the game's probably going to be like 50 hours long. Yeah. Like, how do you fit that into the E3 madness? You can't really. Yeah. So yeah, I hear what you're saying there. I would not be surprised if it were delayed a couple months. Not at all. But I do think it's coming out before the end of the year.
Oh, definitely.
No matter
what.
It's
making it this year, no question.
Yep. Okay. My second prediction for 2020 is that Google Stadia will become a free service before the end of the year. And in fact, I would say Google Stadia is probably going to become a free service before E3 2020.
As in, you mean like they're going to get rid of the subscriber option?
Yep. And
you'll just get 4K for free.
And you'll just pay for your game.
Buy the games.
Yep. And they're going to have to figure it out. Like, the bottom line is that's the model they need to have. And unfortunately, they're going to have to learn the hard way that that's the model that they need to have. So I wouldn't be surprised if at E3 2020 they announce, yes, Stadia is going to be free for anyone to use. Maybe they don't give up the 4K, or maybe they give up like upscaled 4K or something like that. It's not going to crush them bandwidth-wise. But people are going to be able to use Stadia for free, and all they're going to have to pay for is the games that they buy on Stadia. And Stadia's going to have to make its money off of that cut that it gets from selling games. Mm-hmm. So that's my big prediction. I don't think it's all that bold because, as you said earlier in the show, already the player count on Destiny 2 has been cut in half from – and by the way, cutting in half means 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Think about that. Now there was only 20,000 concurrent playing Destiny 2 on Stadia. Now it's down to 10,000.
Not a lot.
That's not enough. Most importantly, it's
way more people playing The Witcher.
Exactly. It's really bad. So I think
that was a fun story.
Yeah.
Where the Netflix show made more people play Witcher 3 than even at launch.
Yeah. How nuts is that? It's pretty awesome.
That's called synergy.
It is called. That's how it's supposed to work. It doesn't always work that way, but that's how it's supposed to work. So I think no matter what, big changes are coming for Stadia in 2020.
Yeah.
They're going to have to figure some stuff out. And I think once they figure it all out...
They're going to have to figure out the things we said the day they announced it.
Yeah, if they had just talked to us, that they would have known. But
I mean, we weren't the only ones.
No, of course. If they had listened to anybody. But they didn't because they're Google and they think they know everything. So they're going to learn the hard way. And by the end of this year, it will be just a service that you log on to and you buy. It's basically a storefront where you can also play the game. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Stadia is going to become. All right. Now to our third and final predictions for 2020. Matt, what's your last one?
I think EA has a new Star Wars game coming this year that is not a Battlefront game.
Really?
I think they have something we don't know about yet.
Where do you think it's coming from?
Possibly Motive.
You think so? You think their game might be ready?
Maybe. But I think they've got something.
DICE?
No,
but a non-shooter.
If DICE was, I think DICE is working on a Battlefront somewhere in there. Unfortunately,
another one, just what we need.
And apparently, they're already drawing up already working on Fallen Order 2, from what reports say. But I think Fallen Order is kind of part of the initiative that EA has shown in sort of trying to turn around their Star Wars situation, and I think they've got something else up their sleeve that we don't know about yet.
I would be surprised.
I would be mildly surprised, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know, call it the Force, but my instincts tell me they have something else to try and continue to save this relationship they have.
And this isn't based on any inside information.
It's not based on anything that I know.
It's just a hunch.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. My last prediction for 2020 is a Switch price cut. So I'm predicting that Switch sales cool off, resulting in a price cut to $249 for the Switch and $179 for Switch Lite by Christmas. And I also feel like that is a good way for Nintendo to head off the impending launch of PS5 and Series X. It's the only way it can, really. Unless Breath of the Wild 2 launches at the end of the year. And you would hope if you're Nintendo, you can get that out like last week of October, early November, before or around the same time as these new consoles launch. But Switch is already overdue for a price cut. Again, this isn't a bold prediction or anything crazy. Switch is overdue for a price cut already. Cutting the price to $179 for Switch Lite a year after it was launched might be a little dicey. But I think Nintendo, as it gets to the end of this year and it starts to see the momentum building for PS5 and Series X, I think you're going to start to see it shift its priorities, shift its strategies, and I think you'll start to see it do things that may seem a little bit desperate, because it's going to be desperate to hold on to mindshare with Switch once these new consoles come out. So I think a desperate Nintendo is a good Nintendo, and I think all of this stuff is going to be good for consumers ultimately. It's going to result in you getting products cheaper. So yeah, I'm predicting a Switch sales cool off, which I don't think, again, is bold. I think it's just common sense. Nintendo's kind of for lack of a better phrase, blown its load on Switch at this point. There aren't that many IPs left for it. It's just the nature of the beast at this point that sales will start to slow. And I think Nintendo will try to offset that. It's going to say our sales are slowing. These 2 big consoles are coming. We got to do something big. And I think this is what the big is.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think the only thing that could throw a monkey wrench into that is how much the touchscreen costs to manufacture. Because you can't really change that. It doesn't drop as fast as like normal like chips and normal hardware.
For sure.
So and Nintendo isn't one to take a loss. So if they can make the economics work with the touchscreen cost, I think that's a pretty solid strategy.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that touchscreens never go down.
No.
They just don't go down at the same
slower,
rate as other...
Slower than graphics cards
right.
and CPUs
and RAM and all that
and
stuff.
It's just a different curve.
Yep, and again, they're due. Like they're ready to drop the price on this thing, and they're not going to do it until they have to. No, and they're going to have to in Q4.
And they definitely didn't have to last year.
No, heck no. I mean, they won last year.
Yeah.
So why would they ever drop the price? That is not going to happen in 2020. So it's going to be good for everyone. If you've been waiting to buy a Switch and you do not have one, I highly recommend holding on until at least E3. And then by then, maybe you'll have more clarity on when some of this other stuff is coming, like Metroid Prime 4 and all that other stuff. So there you go. A gigantic 2+ hour 2020 preview from GameFace. We definitely missed some stuff. At a certain point, I had to cut stuff. Like, these lists for these games were, like, the third-party stuff was starting to get, like, gigantic. And I know some people will be pissed off that we didn't do a PC section. The truth of the matter is that 90% of PC games are on consoles now. It's really come down to like a very select number of franchises that only appear on PC. So I hear you if you're a PC gamer. I apologize. At a certain point, you have to be realistic with shows like this, and you can't just include everything. So we did the best we could. I think we covered all the really big stuff, and I absolutely feel certain that you're prepared for 2020 after watching this episode. All right. Time for our trailer of the week. We did do a trailer of the week this week, which is a little strange for an episode like this, but Sony put out a trailer over the last week celebrating the first 25 years of PlayStation. It's really hard to believe that it's been 25 years since PlayStation launched, but Sony put together a trailer that touches on pretty much every era of PlayStation. It's a fun watch. Let's check it out. Let's go. Matt, what is your favorite PlayStation platform of all time?
I think I gotta say PS4.
Yeah, me too.
Like, they killed it this gen.
They killed it. Yep, absolutely. PS2 is pretty good too.
Yeah, PS2 is probably my second pick.
Yep.
If only because that's where Shadow of the Colossus began.
Yeah, there's lots of good IP that started there.
Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Where's my remaster? They're making a new one of those. Let's do some Dark Alliance 1 and 2
I completely
remasters.
forgotten about that, actually. That whole franchise. Let's see. Quickly, we want to go and thank everybody who subscribed via Twitch Prime here at the end. I saw a bunch of you guys doing it at the beginning. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to go back and check all that stuff out. Gohan Rage, thank you. Justin Horman, thank you. Texture Glitch, thank you. Call of Dookie 1, thank you. I love some of your usernames. So thank you guys for subscribing via Twitch Prime. Again, this is something that we need. Twitch Prime is not a bonus for us. It's not this little coffer that goes into this massive pile of money that we don't notice. We need Twitch Prime to survive. So thanks everybody who did it on the live stream. Thanks for people who are doing it on YouTube. Thanks for people who do it on Patreon, on SIFTD. It makes a huge difference for us, so thank you guys very much. All right, let's get to some questions. The show's been a little bit shorter than usual, so we're going to be able to answer a few more. Let's see what we got here. ETH Demon, with The Witcher's boost, do you think other publishers and developers try to push Netflix, etc., to try and make a Netflix show of their games?
I mean, it's not impossible, but the caveat here remains that the Witcher series is based on a series of books, not the games.
Yeah.
And if you say, like, hey, do you want to you should make a series out of our game, Netflix can come back with, like, well, where's the source material?
Right.
Because, you know, I think that's a very important element of this.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I don't think you can push Netflix to do anything it doesn't want to do.
That is also true.
It holds all the cards, and it's very good at what it does. So, his question, though, is, would you go ask? Absolutely, I would go ask.
Yeah, it can't hurt to ask.
Yeah. You're probably going to get shot down, unless you're like Halo or Metal Gear or something like that. But it never hurts to ask because it absolutely could be a massive boon to your business and your IP. So I think your idea is right. I think it's a good idea. And if I were a developer or publisher, I would absolutely do that. I just think Netflix holds all the cards, and going to ask isn't going to sway the pendulum much.
I mean, it depends who you've got. I mean, I guess, like, Microsoft probably wouldn't do that because they would put it on their own service or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like because when I think about it, I think the property that jumps to mind that would like benefit from the kind of the format that Netflix uses the most is Gears of War.
Yeah.
I think you can make a really good Gears of War miniseries.
Yeah, you probably could. Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked much about the Witcher show.
I haven't actually seen all of it yet.
I'm on the last episode. I have fallen asleep 3 times trying to watch the last episode. I've been burning the candle at both ends, and I always start watching it at like 1:45 a.m. or 12:45. Like, and I start watching it, and I've got to like the same point 3 times, and I go out. So I haven't finished it. I've watched most of it, but one thing they do with that show is they self-contain each episode. So there is an overarching plot, but each episode has its own story that's wrapped up by the end. And I think that's an interesting way to kind of tackle a show based on a video game.
Well, it's also not based on a video. That's the thing is like...
Yeah, it's on the books.
It's telling the story that was told in the books.
Yeah.
Like right down to like the origin of Yennefer and all that stuff. Which is a little here and there, but... on
which side, the games or the books?
The books. I mean, the games presumably have the same origin, but they don't go into the idea that Yennefer was a disabled person who basically was
sold her soul,
and then sold her soul and her womb to do it. Yeah. I mean, that's canon to the stories, but like
the games don't cover it.
The games don't really deal with that because it was in the past,
right?
And it's just like, it's 25-year-old Polish fantasy. It's a little, it's not as woke as you might think,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
So that was interesting to see that they didn't really even try to adapt that in any way. But the other problem is like, if I go to someone with a game property to go to Netflix, they're like, hey, you should make a show out of this. Their initial question is going to be like, well, what's the story and why is it unique and why is it different? And the answer to that with most video game stories is it is not.
Right.
And like,
which makes it a non-starter.
There was a very interesting thread. I can't remember who did it. It was some game journalist opinion guy, and I can't remember who it was. But they basically were saying it was Doc Squidward or Doc Squiggy, something like that. He said something like, game publishers count on you being effectively media illiterate to think that their stories are anything useful or good.
Yeah.
And like
Netflix is not media illiterate.
But the Last of Us, like if you say pitch doing that, there's nothing really in The Last of Us in terms of the story or plot or kind of premise that hasn't been done 100 times better in other zombie or apocalypse fiction.
Yeah.
The hook of Last of Us is always those two characters.
Yeah.
Those characters' relationships. And that just becomes, can you recreate those characters' relationships in a series with 2 different actors, essentially just aping the performances or the behaviors of these previous actors who, frankly, could probably also do it in live action if you made them up properly.
Yeah, for sure.
But, like, at that point, you're saying, like, well, why are we paying to adapt this thing that's so derivative in the first place? Why don't we just make our own show?
Yeah. I think The Last of Us,
I think you run into that problem with almost every game story you could think of.
I think The Last of Us, though, is more prime for a TV show because you do have that core relationship to work off of. Like, a lot of these other games, you have a main character, but it's like, what does he do? Who does he talk to? What is his goal? With The Last of Us, it's very clear. It's
Yeah.
Joel and Ellie.
Well, that's why
and they're together and they're protecting each other, trying to survive.
Yeah, well, that's why I picked it, because it's the closest thing you can. It's the easiest one to think of. Is like, oh, I could adapt that into something.
Yeah.
Sort of why I picked Gears of War. Because the reason I picked Gears of War is like not because the characters are super strong or whatever, but because I think there's meat on the bone in the sense of doing a war story that like follows Delta through this like horrible meat grinder of a story of a campaign they have to go through, and introduces an audience that has never heard of this game to this world and what has happened, and as you slowly piece together sort of what happened to this world. And I think the destroyed beauty angle they used on Gears in the early stuff, at least, where you see how beautiful Sarah used to be and how that's just gone now.
Yeah.
Like the sense of loss in the early Gears games, I think would translate well to a series that would speak to people who don't care about video games.
I would also argue that the franchise lost that over the
I think
last
it did. I think you're
couple
right.
entries.
I think so.
Yeah, they would do well to go back to that.
I think I think the most valuable thing you can translate from a game in terms of making it into a purely narrative situation is tone. And Gears has tone.
Yep, for sure. Yep.
That you wouldn't lose if you translated it.
That's for sure. Okay, great question, by the way. That really got us talking. Sneaky Solid Snake. Do you think the new Xbox will have some big new Minecraft? It's still massive, and kids will beg for a new Xbox to play it. They'd be stupid not to, but I don't think it will.
I mean, at best, I would think you get the
some expansion pack or something.
Like the you remember the upgrade, the HD, whatever that they were going to do, and they canceled
they bailed on it.
Yeah, like maybe they finally do that.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I don't think there's ever gonna be a Minecraft 2.
I don't think so. No, I think you add on and add on and add on, but you keep it the same thing.
Yeah, there's just no reason for a sequel, and I think they're gonna learn that with Overwatch 2. Like, I'm wondering why that sequel exists. I would probably say the same thing if they said that. I wonder that about like Super Mario Maker. I'm like, why is there a Maker 2? There's no reason for it. So I think Minecraft and Mojang have got that all along. That's what other people have not got, is that we're not creating a game, we're creating a platform, a thing. And I feel like these other people who are making game tools like Minecraft have not got that. They still are in the, here's the one game, now here's the sequel, now how do we manage our DLC so people will buy the sequel? Like Minecraft and Mojang are like, whatever, we have this platform, we're going to keep putting stuff out, you're going to keep playing it, and you're going to pay for the stuff that you want to pay for, and we're going to make billions. And that's exactly what has happened. People could, I don't know why I'm telling other publishers to learn something from Minecraft. Like, you should have learned that from like freaking day one. Let's see. Switch Pro this year from Wolfox 10JC. We talked about it a little bit, about the DigiTimes thing that just came out yesterday, and both of us are saying, yeah, we do think that there will be a Pro before the end of the year. Let's see. Oh, Vincent is saying Xenoblade is only announced for 2020. You're confusing it with TMS, which is next week. What's TMS?
Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Oh, okay.
Or temporal mandibular syndrome, depending on...
Erebus Jones, if the prices of next-gen consoles are higher than usual, i.e. $500 plus, is the winner going to be the manufacturer with the best exclusives or the one with the best finance options? Well, I mean, Microsoft is the only one that has financial options right now.
Right.
I mean, you'll be able to buy a Series X and like pay like $50 a month or whatever. I really feel bad for people that do that. Like, I really hope people just save their money for the next 12 months and just buy it in cash. Like, you're going to lose your ass getting on that payment plan. It's not a good deal. Like, if you can afford it, start saving now for a console at the end of the year. Don't get trapped into these, like, I mean, they prey on people who don't have money. I mean, it's not just this thing with Microsoft. It's every industry does it. Like, so if you can, try to save your cash and just pay cash for them. I don't recommend doing the all-access thing for Xbox. It's a decent last resort, I guess, is what I would say. But to answer Erebus Jones' question, is the winner going to be the one with the best exclusives or the best finance options?
I mean, probably the best exclusives, really. And that's more of a thing in the long run. We'll see.
Do you think the promise of exclusives or the actual launch lineup?
I think in history tells us that the actual presence of exclusives matters, and maybe we don't find out who wins until we get deeper into the libraries.
Yeah. I think software is going to win. And I think it always does. Some would argue that necessarily didn't happen, but I think it did this past gen. Like, PlayStation 4 had the best software, and it won. And I think that's always going to happen. So I think maybe out of the gate, the numbers are a little in flux, but ultimately what's going to determine which one wins is going to be which one has the best games. So I don't think that having a finance option is going to help Microsoft. Like, I don't think that All Access, that payment plan that Microsoft has, is going to turn the tide of the console war or anything like that. It'll be a nice ad, but it's not going to move the needle in a significant way, what I would argue. Congrim 1, GTA 5 was the most downloaded game on PSN in December. That's crazy. Is this a sign? It's a sign of the apocalypse is what it is. Is this a sign that there is still a good-sized audience to get on board the PS4, or is GTA 5 just a phenomenon?
GTA 5 is just a phenomenon.
Yeah, it really
GTA
is.
5 is some kind of weird anomaly.
I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again. I really don't. I don't think GTA 6 will do it. I don't think anything Rockstar ever does will do it. It's an anomaly and amazing what it's done. It was really smart to release it at the end of one generation and then start promoting it at the beginning of another one. Like, I think that a lot of publishers are going to start looking at that strategy as like something they try to do going forward. I think Last of Us Part 2 is set up right now to do that. Ghost of Tsushima is set up to do that right now. I think it's a smart strategy, and it's one that becomes more viable with every passing day. So, yeah, I just think it's GTA 5, man. I don't think it's at the PS4. I mean, look, there are still people who don't own PS4s, so sure. And there are some people who don't own GTA 5, sure. But this isn't a sign that, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't send the PS4 out to pasture yet. It's done.
Yeah, also, it's the most downloaded, not the most bought game, it's the most downloaded game. And the reason part of the reason for that is a lot of people reinstalled it to play the new DLC.
That's a good point, actually. Yep. I'm dying. That's a really good point.
That's my job, coughing in the microphone. Give it back.
I don't know if we want to get into this. Eric Scott, thank you for subscribing via Twitch Prime. We'll do it. One Supermaster Gamer. Matt, tell us what you think of the new Star Wars.
Not tops. 2.5 hours of plot with no story, no character, and nothing to hang on to. I found it to be a wholly hollow and empty film that I didn't understand what I was supposed to take away from it outside of, like, look at all the plot, look at all the plot, look at all the plot. Thematically empty, no setup and payoff, just all the same problems J.J. Abrams has in his other movies, except enhanced because it's Star Wars, so I actually care about it. And like, I found it disappointing, but I also had no real reaction to it. It was just like, well, that happened. And then the next day I was mildly depressed because apparently mild depression is my reaction to having no reaction to Star Wars. Like, I was hoping I could at least hate it.
Right.
But I just sort of sat there and was like, what? Like, and it has a lot of the same issues where, like, they're playing to the audience and they're not thinking about how the story works or how the characters work. Like, and the best example I can give is from
playing to the audience should be the subtitle of that film.
The best example I can give is actually from Star Trek Into Darkness, in which Benedict Cumberbatch is sitting in that cell and talking to Spock and Kirk, and he says, "My name is not Stephen Harrison," or whatever they say his name is. I am Khan.
Right.
And Kirk and Spock are like, and it's like, yeah, unless they saw Wrath of Khan, they don't know who the hell you are. Like, only we get why that's a big reveal with a dramatic music sting and the big close-up. Like, otherwise, you literally just said, your name is not Steve, my name is Jeff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it has nothing to do, and it's like, there's no significance to the in-universe characters for that. It's not a moment for them, so it can't be a moment for us, and that's just... J.J. Abrams is not really being a filmmaker in these movies. He's being a carnival barker trying to get you to come in and see this attraction. He wants you to spend your last dollar to see this legendary manticore that's actually a toothless lion. But whoops, no refunds, kid.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt when I walked out of Rise of Skywalker. I felt like I'd gotten duped by a guy with a cane and a straw and a hat outside of a podium.
Yeah.
And I will say that basically, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's just a ride, you got to turn your brain off and have fun. It's like, well, here's the thing about the turn your brain off thing. I'm on board with that for a lot of movies. I do that for every Fast and the Furious movie because you have to, and I love those movies. But even at its dumbest, even at its lowest point, by lowest point I mean episode 2, Star Wars has never asked me to do that before.
Yeah.
Star Wars has always at least tried to be smart, to be about something. Even when Lucas was failing at making these prequels something special, he knew how stories worked. He knew they had to be about the characters. He knew that the plot couldn't drive it. What the characters wanted and needed had to drive it. And in the end, JJ didn't do that in this movie. And my biggest concern with it right now is after I walked out of the prequels, even though I didn't like them very much, I felt like I was going to be able to absorb them into my personal Star Wars head eventually as sort of like that's part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know if I ever can do that with Episode 9 because it just feels like another J.J. Abrams movie.
Interesting. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed little bits of it, but I'm not going to talk about individual bits because I don't know.
We'll sit here for the next 4 hours.
Well, also because I don't know who has seen it and who hasn't.
Yeah.
It's a long damn movie. People may not been able to get around to it by the holidays.
Yeah.
So.
I liked it. I came out of the theater in a good mood. It's like the most gratuitous case of fan service I have ever seen.
That is true, and also the editor said the same thing.
And I'll say this though, I am a big fan, and I was okay with a lot of it. Even, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, but even that last shot. I don't want to spoil it, that superimposed shot at the end with her where she decides who she is.
Yeah, see...
Even that, like, I totally got how corny and cheap and cheesy it was, but I still was okay. Like,
well, here's the thing. My problem with that is not that it's corny or cheap or cheesy. It's that it's thematically incorrect. They screw this stuff up constantly throughout that whole movie. There's no setups that have payoffs. They have unfired Chekhov's guns through the whole... All my complaints about Rise of Skywalker are not related to Star Wars. They're all related to screenwriting.
Filmmaking.
Screenwriting 101.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
Yeah, I agree. But I'll say this, too. I didn't find anywhere near as many plot holes in this movie as I did the last one. Like, when I walked out of the movie last time... There were a couple things in that movie that made me angry. Where I walked out, I was like, who...
As in Last Jedi or Solo?
Last Jedi. I was like, how could somebody watch this and not see these plot holes? Like, did anybody watch this beforehand?
I will say this. Last Jedi has no significant plot holes.
Really?
Rise of Skywalker has a few, but they're not important.
See, I didn't pick up on them. I didn't.
Well, because it happens so fast, you don't have time.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think of any plot holes in Rise of Skywalker till I didn't know I didn't like it very much. But later I was thinking about other things. I'm like, wait a minute, like that. But like the thing is, Alfred Hitchcock would say that's still a success because if you don't think of it until you have time to think of it later after the movie's over, the movie still did its job. Yeah. So I don't blame it for that. My problem is, I can put up with nonsensical plotting if the narrative themes strike true, and this movie doesn't really have any.
Yeah.
It has. Roger Ebert used to say that the best way to evaluate a movie for him was to think about who he was and what he took into the theater with him, and when he leaves the movie, has any of that changed? And usually in a Star Wars movie, there's something else I have to think about. I have something else that I take out of that movie with me. And with Rise of Skywalker, I took nothing. And that is the worst thing about it to me, is that I just got nothing from it.
Interesting. I would rank this last trilogy 2, 3, 1. As in the second movie's the best, third movie's second best, first movie's the worst.
I would say 2, 1, 3. Because Force Awakens has some of the same problems, but it's not as... Those problems aren't as lethal in a first chapter.
That movie is going to be the worst for me by default because to me it's just a rehash of the first trilogy. So no matter what, that is always going to be the worst of the three because I didn't feel like they did anything on their own or very little on their own for that film.
I think that's wrong, but it would take too long to get into why I think that because there's a lot more to it there. Also because the writer on that movie was much better than Chris Terrio. That was Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote Empire.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, not everything Lawrence Kasdan's ever written is great, but Rise of Skywalker I find far more derivative, in part just because they reuse the bad guy.
Well, they did, they reused the bad guy, and then the final
scene
is literally an homage to Return of the Jedi. Right.
Well, do you realize the opening the opening text crawl of Rise of Skywalker is a Fortnite reference?
No, I didn't know that.
When they say that at the beginning, it's like the dead speak, Palpatine is the dead.
Yeah.
That's referring to Palpatine's little monologue at the beginning of the Fortnite.
Are you kidding me?
Being a Fortnite event. That's literally that's canonically what he says to everyone in the galaxy between movies.
I think Skywalker is going to be appreciated by people who don't know as much about Star Wars as you do.
But that's what I'm saying is my problem with it isn't Star Wars.
I know you're
related.
saying that, but
it's storytelling related.
Yeah.
And even my hardcore friends who love everything Star Wars, after they saw it 3 or 4 times, came back and was like, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't really work. I'm like, yeah, well, I care much more about story and structure than most people. I understand that. Most people just want to ride, which is probably what the stupid Avatar sequels are going to do really well.
Probably.
But like, that's another thing I've noticed in the last week or so. All these weird like memes or like, this is like an Avatar thing with like cat videos and stuff coming up. No one has referred to Avatar in years, and suddenly I saw like 5 like viral tweets about how like, oh, it's just like an Avatar, and I'm like, that's not a real person. That's viral marketing. That's like they're ramping up for the Avatar sequels to like trying to make them like memes again. I swear to God, that's what's happening. But
I enjoyed it. I agree that you do have to turn your brain off a little bit, and I did. Like I just went in and just let it like kind of wash over me, and I almost cried at a couple points. Sadly,
there are a couple of nice moments, and I'm not saying it doesn't have effective scenes.
Yeah,
I'm just saying they're few and far between, and I think they are mostly the work of the actors in them.
Probably.
So I think Adam Driver.
I was surprised how much Leia was in the movie, man.
Adam Driver proves in this movie that he is,
work.
Adam Driver proves in this movie that he is way better than Star Wars deserves. Frankly,
he was the best actor in the
film.
for sure.
He pulls some stuff out of that material just through performance that clearly was never there before he put it there.
Yep.
So.
Yeah,
a lot of respect to him for trying to make something out of Kylo Ren at the end of this whole thing.
Yep. All right, let's move on.
Also, thank God The Mandalorian is on, because I went back to that and just like, I still like Star Wars. Star Wars still works on me, just not this crap.
I'm about to get Disney Plus just for this month because now all the episodes are out. So I can get it for 1 month, watch all of it, and then cancel.
It's great.
Yeah. Justin Horman, what was the best exclusive game to launch with a PlayStation console? Jeez, that's a tough one.
I might have to look at some lists.
Like Ridge Racer or something?
I mean, I gotta say, I think the most fun I ever had with a PlayStation launch game was that actually, maybe that wasn't a launch game. NFL Game Day? Did a Game Day launch?
No,
was that like
wasn't
just
a
close
launch
to
game.
launch?
That was like 3 months, I think, after
later.
launch. There have never been good ones.
No. I mean, Resistance is probably the best launch game.
Probably, yeah. That's true. That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Resistance Fall of Man. Yeah. It's not been good.
No.
So remember that in like 10 months when everyone's bitching about the launch lineups. That's the way it always is. There's always a bunch of crap, and then there's one game that probably could have been good if they actually gave it an extra 6 months of development. It's just the way it works. So just prepping you guys now for what's to come. Mike's Q, thank you for Twitch Prime. Not Cirque, thank you for Twitch Prime. Let's see. Vincent reminding us that the Pokemon Direct is coming Thursday morning. Pokemon Sleep incoming from Johnny Hurricane. If you guys go add SIFTD Games, make sure it's a question. Gerzilla, thank you for subscribing via Twitch Prime. I think that might be it. Chevelle Man, thank you for subscribing via Twitch Prime. Talimper, thank you for subscribing via Twitch Prime. Y'all rock. 18 months. Thank you, brother. All right, that's it for GameFace 195. I'm surprised you guys didn't have any more questions after our big preview and the fact we've been gone for a couple weeks here. Good to get back in the groove. Good to be back in here and get 2020 off to a good start. Hopefully you guys are starting the new year off on the right foot as well. A reminder, there are big things coming for SIFTD in 2020. A target date you might want to keep your eye on is looking like February 11th. Might or might not be a big date in the history of SIFTD. You might want to put that on your calendar. Big things coming. Not ready to talk about them all yet, but lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. I'm not going to just drop everything on you guys. I'll start talking about some of this stuff as it gets a little closer. But as of right now, it's still a ways away, and I don't want to start talking about stuff that's irrelevant. So we'll be back next week. Next week, fantasy draft.
Oh.
I'm hoping
Good
I can do better than I did last year. I don't know how. I thought I was crazy conservative last year and got burned bad, so I don't know. Maybe I should just try to do the opposite of everything I've done in our drafts before. Maybe it'll end up working out better for me. But yeah, next week will be our SIFTD Fantasy League draft. If you guys remember the fantasy challenge from last year, there was like 100 and some people in it. That is coming back this year. And we're going to do that in a more official capacity across Sifted, including providing some kind of a prize for the person who wins the league. And there's all kinds of other fantasy leagues going on in Sifted right now. Get on the site, get in the forums. If you want to play in more than one league, there's a bunch of them going on. It's really inspiring to see what we've done. I mean, it really is. Like, we had someone who built a website for a video game fantasy league. There are like 5 or 6 leagues going on around the site. Last year, like 10 other websites copied what we've been doing. It's awesome. It's great to see this taking off from this crazy idea I had back in like 8 years ago. So the challenge will be happening again this year. And if you remember, there's like a grid and your picks are weighted. Each pick is weighted more heavily depending on where you pick it in the draft. That is happening again. We're kind of fixing up the page and getting it to look a little more official. And then next week on GameFace, I'll give you guys the go-ahead to go in and start submitting your picks and things like that. And again, there will be a real prize for the winner this year. Sifted's Real Fantasy Football League. I did not bring up the winner. So I'll say this. I did not make the bowl this year. So I will not be the Buffalo Bills of the Sifted Fantasy League. I know some people may think that that's crazy, but I am actually glad that I didn't make the bowl so I could refrain from that humiliation. So I did not even make the championship game this year, unfortunately. I ended up losing the very next game after I updated you guys on it. But I do want to share the winner of the league. Well, here we go. Our champion is Robert Diana. And you can probably bring this up on screen, Jared, so they can see it. I ended up getting third place. Oh, I never set the net input, sorry. So I ended up getting third place because after you lose the game before, then you play the loser of the other game, and I ended up winning that game. So I ended up in third place. Robert Diana ended up in first. He's the guy who ended up knocking me out in the playoff game. And then second place goes to Suicide King, who you guys all knew was playing Robert Diana in that other matchup. So congratulations to Robert Diana. We're still trying to get the trophy back from last year's winner because we had reached out to Matt Kyle Rocks to send him the trophy, and he would never reply. So we never got his mailing address. So we're going to get that shipped back, and we'll ship out the trophy to Robert Diana. I'll get it all updated. I'll get the trophy, the plaques, like all engraved and everything. We'll send it out to you. But congratulations to Robert Diana, the 2019 Sifted Fantasy Football League champion. And with that, we're about to get up and out of here. Like I said, again, draft happening next week. Head to the site if you want to be a part of any of the leagues. We'll have more information on the Fantasy Challenge in the episode next week. And just get ready. Start saving your money. Chill out. There's not a lot of big games coming in January. And so it's kind of good that we could do like the preview and then the draft, and it gets us through a couple weeks, and then Dragon Ball's coming along. And we'll be sure to cover the big stuff for you guys as the month wears on. But anyway, welcome to 2020. Thank you for all your support in 2019. Thanks to everyone who stuck with us so far in 2020. It's going to be a great year. GameFace is up and out.